Chapter 1088. Between heaven and earth, everything was dark. Only the everlasting divine dial shone brightly, divine and dazzling. A gentle breeze blew, and Chu Liyue's sleeves fluttered, as she watched the incomplete pattern on the infinite divine dial disappear with a loud bang. The stone in her heart finally fell to the ground. Thank goodness! Thank goodness! She managed to stop it at the very last moment. Chu Liyue rejoiced inwardly. Just a little more, and the needle would have reached 12. It was fortunate that she managed to save it in time. If the crowd below knew what she was thinking, they would probably vomit blood. Everyone was fighting to make the needle move 2 more times, but she was afraid that it would continue to move, so she stopped it. Chu Liyue retracted her hand. The light on the infinite divine dial gradually dimmed. Then, under countless shocked gazes, the infinite divine dial gradually disappeared into the void. At the top of the mountain, only the light of the lantern illuminated the woman's figure. Straight, slender, and graceful, she turned around and leaped onto the bridge formed by the golden light. Her footsteps were elegant, and her figure was light. In the blink of an eye, she was back in the ethereal hall. She jumped down from the bridge. Rongxiu waved his sleeves, and the golden light dissipated into countless stars. In the darkness, the woman seemed to have walked out of the endless light. She walked up to Rongxiu and smiled. "How is it? Are you satisfied with this result?" Rongxiu looked at her with deep eyes. His thin lips curled up slightly as he smiled. "Your is always the best." Chu Liyue's eyes curved into crescents, but she soon realized that the surroundings were completely silent. She was stunned for a moment. She looked at the crowd and blinked her eyes in confusion, only to see them looking at her with shocked expressions. Were they stunned by that 11? Chu Liyue pondered. However, at this moment Lin Tianfeng suddenly muttered, "That's right. Miss Dugu, you're your face." Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat, and she immediately touched her face. Smooth and delicate. It was her own face. Chu Liyue widened her eyes slightly and looked at Rongxiu, only to see Rongxiu holding back his laughter and saying gently, "Don't you feel uncomfortable wearing that mask?" As expected, the mask had fallen off. What Chu Liyue didn't know was that when the needle of the everlasting divine dial pointed to 10, the mask on her face had already silently disappeared. It was just that she had placed all her attention on the everlasting divine dial at that time, so she didn't notice this. Under such circumstances, Chu Liyue suddenly dropped his mask. For a moment he felt a little awkward. Cough. Chu Liyue coughed to cover it up. It's all right. During this period of time, she had been showing her face to others, so she had gotten used to it. Rongxiu reached out and tidied up her messy hair that was blown by the mountain wind. His actions were rare and gentle. He looked at her as if he was looking at a rare treasure, and treated her with extreme care and care. After a short moment of silence, the crowd finally broke out into whispers. "So this is Duguyu's true appearance. Otherworldly and elegant. Truly a beauty capable of toppling cities. I originally thought that Miss Jiang was already beautiful enough, but compared to her, Miss Jiang seems to have instantly become much duller. With such an appearance, no wonder His Highness the Holy Sun is so fond of her. Furthermore, her bloodline talent is also so high." After regaining their senses, many people exclaimed. Jiang Jiwen stared blankly at the 2 people standing side by side not far away. When she saw that Duguyu's bloodline had surpassed hers, her heart had already turned cold. At that time, the only consolation she could give herself was that although Duguyu was outstanding in other aspects, she had an ordinary face. At least in this aspect, she had won against Duguyu. But now, she knew that she was gravely mistaken. Duguyu. So this is what she looks like. She was wearing an ordinary red dress, and her hair was tied up simply. She did not wear any makeup, but she seemed to be more beautiful than the myriad of sceneries in the world. When she stood there, everything around her seemed to be overshadowed in an instant. Countless golden light spots dissipated behind her, illuminating her snow-white jade-like face. A pair of jade-like eyes seemed to ripple like water, and countless stars seemed to be hidden in them. She smiled, and her eyes curved into crescents. This was probably what it meant to be a beauty capable of toppling countries. Although she did not want to admit it, Jiang Jiwen knew that compared to her, she was indeed inferior. Since young, she had been the most outstanding in all aspects. Everything was the best. This was the first time she had been so thoroughly defeated by another girl. This blow came so quickly that she was a little dazed for a moment. For a moment, she even felt a bit of regret. She should not have come. From the beginning to the end, this banquet was just specially organized by Rongxiu for her. He had put in so much effort for her. And he had done everything he could for her. Even though he knew that there would be countless objections if he allowed this girl to become the consort, he still did it. As for her, from the beginning to the end, he had not even spared her a single glance. She was nothing more than a joke. Rongxiu helped Chu Luyue tidy up her hair and clothes, and his gaze lingered on her face for a moment. In truth, it had been a long time since he last saw her face. If not for the fact that they were still in the ethereal hall, and there were still people around, with such thoughts in mind, Rongxiu wanted to resolve this matter as soon as possible. He turned around to look at Yu Jing and the others. Now the consort position should belong to Yue, right? Yu Jing and the others glanced at one another. Initially, they had rushed back to stop Rongxiu, and the reason and excuse they came up with were reasonable. But who knew that Dugu would actually pass all of them? It would be bad if they were to go back on their words now. I didn't expect Miss Dugu to have such a top-notch bloodline talent as well. I apologize for my ignorance earlier. If we have offended you in any way, please forgive us, Miss Dugu. Elder Jingchen was the first to react. After recovering from his shock, he quickly adjusted his state of mind and spoke with an amiable expression. It's just that, for some reason, the bloodline totem on the infinite divine dial didn't display its full strength. Given that Miss Dugu possesses such a powerful bloodline talent, I believe that her clan must be extremely powerful as well, right? May I know which clan do you belong to? Hearing those words, everyone turned to look at Chu Luyue. This was also what they were curious about. Chu Luyue blinked her eyes and smiled. I'm just an ordinary clan outside the ethereal hall. It's not worth mentioning. Miss Dugu, are you still unwilling to reveal your identity at this point? If you aren't from a clan in the world of gods, it's impossible for the infinite divine dial to display such a level. Elder Yu Jing said impatiently. In his opinion, Chu Luyue was just refusing to admit it, so there was no point in doing so. I forgot to introduce you. Rongxiu suddenly spoke up. This is Ai's fiancé in the Empire of Glory Dawn, as well as the future consort of the Yuntian Tower, Shanghai Yu. Chapter 1089. Many people in the Yuntian Tower, in the Empire of Yao Chun, had heard of this place. This was because Rongxiu's mother had secretly married the emperor of the Empire of Yao Chun. Everyone in the Yuntian Tower knew that he was the 7th prince of the Empire of Yao Chun. These things had already spread like wildfire when they found Rongxiu. Almost everyone knew about it. It was also because of this that Rongxiu had always been regarded as a disgrace to the clan. If not for the fact that the infinite divine dial had automatically appeared in front of the sacrificial god temple and detected his astonishing talent and bloodline, he might have already been killed in front of all the ancestral tablets of the Yin Tianke sect. Over the years, as Rongxiu's cultivation improved, his authority in the Yuntian Tower also increased. Gradually, everyone stopped mentioning this matter. This time, it was Rongxiu's first time mentioning it. His goal was self-evident: to secure the position of Chu Luyue's princess consort. Elder Yu Jingzuan and the others were shocked at first. Then, they looked at each other and frowned. According to His Highness, this Dugu. No, this Shengguan Yu really had an ordinary background. But how could they explain the infinite divine dial's reaction? There had never been such a situation before. Your Highness, Miss Shengguan is an outsider, but she was tested to be ranked 11, and has an extremely powerful bloodline talent. It's really strange. From a certain perspective, I can be considered an outsider. But didn't I also test to be ranked 11? You revered elders have repeatedly brought up this point. Could it be that you also have the same attitude towards this lord's identity? Rongxiu interrupted Elder Yu Jingzuan's words and said calmly, I wouldn't dare. Elder Yu Jingzuan's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately denied it. Even if that was what they were thinking, how could they say it out loud? Besides, Rong Xiao, an outsider, had the best bloodline talent of the Yuntian Tower in the past thousands of years. They had no choice but to accept this. 36 Revered Elder Ming smiled and said, "Little Yu from today onwards, you are the Holy Sun's princess consort." Honored Elder Yu Jing wanted to say something but hesitated. Honored Elder Qing Chen gave him a meaningful glance. 36 Revered Elder Ming had a noble status, and was the most senior among the revered elders. Even if Revered Elder Tong Chuan was here, he would have to give him some face. What about the others? As soon as he opened his mouth, the people around him were left with no room for rebuttal. They had made it clear that they were going to do this today. Whoever disagreed would be publicly going against the saint and 36 Revered Elder Ming. He really couldn't act rashly. Elder Yu Jingzuan took a deep breath and swallowed the rest of his words. Elder Pure Dust was able to control his expression quite well. He bowed slightly. "Greetings, Your Highness." Seeing that he was already like this, Honored Elder Yu Jing and Honored Elder Shirkayan could only follow. "Greetings, Your Highness." The people around them were still a little stunned. It settled just like that? Even the revered elders have publicly acknowledged this person's identity? Then, "Congratulations to His Highness and Your Highness." A voice suddenly came from the quiet crowd. It was Lin Qifei, who took a step forward and bowed first. This voice finally caused everyone to react. Almost everyone spoke in unison and bowed respectfully. "Congratulations to His Highness and Your Highness." Chu Luiyue looked at Rong Xiao. Just like that, it's settled? It seemed a little too simple. Rong Xiao raised his sword-like eyebrows slightly, chuckled softly, and suddenly held her hand. Chu Luiyue wore an ancient universe ring on her hand. He gently brushed his fingertips over it. The upper layer suddenly faded, and a dazzling golden light shone brightly. Only then did Chu Luiyue see that the Yuntian Tower's totem was carved on the ring. She was slightly stunned, and suddenly understood something. "The holy ring?" 36 Revered Elder Ming stood nearby, and saw the ring on her hand at a glance. He couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. When the crowd heard this, they all revealed a look of shock. The holy ring was actually on her hand. Rong Xiao explained. The holy ring is the status symbol of the Yuntian Tower's holy sun. It is also a keepsake given to the concubines of the past. Chu Luiyue was stunned. "So, you gave it to me so early?" Rong Xiao chuckled softly. His eyes were gentle, but there was a noble and domineering aura that couldn't be disobeyed. "It's yours anyway. Why should it be early or late?" Jiang Jiwan turned and left. Jiang Hetian quickly chased after her. "Ziyuan? Ziyuan." After a few steps, he suddenly stopped and looked back at Rong Xiao and Chu Luiyue. His expression was extremely complicated. It seemed like he was angry, but also seemed to be resentful. "His Highness treats Miss Shengguan very well. It turns out that my immortal water tomb is not worthy of her. I will take my leave now. I hope that the two of you will also be treated well by the Patriarch in the future. Grow old together." Who is he using the Patriarch to threaten? Rong Xiao's lips curved up into an elegant smile. "Patriarch Jiang, you don't have to worry about it. Thank you for your blessing." Jiang Hetian was so angry that he swung his sleeve and left. The remaining people of the immortal water tomb also hurriedly bowed and left. Many people secretly exchanged glances. The concubine position was taken by Sheng Guanyu. The immortal water tomb wouldn't let it go so easily, especially since Jiang Jiwan was the Patriarch's favorite concubine candidate. There would be more trouble in the future. However, Rong Xiao didn't seem to care about this. He glanced at the sky. "It's getting late. Everyone should disperse. The wedding day will be decided later. I hope that everyone will come again at that time." After speaking, he looked at Chu Luiyue. It's been a long journey. Do you want to rest now?" Chu Luiyue paused and smiled. "Okay. But I haven't seen Your Highness for a long time. I miss you. I wonder if Your Highness has the time to catch up with me?" Rong Xiao's eyebrows twitched slightly. "Everything is up to you. Sacrificial God Temple. The Holy Sun's bedroom. Yan Qing and Umo were guarding outside the main hall. After a day and night of work, the two of them were actually very tired. But they didn't feel sleepy at all. Instead, they were especially alert and focused on guarding. From time to time, they would glance inside, afraid that something would happen. Even though he couldn't see or hear anything from where he was standing, he couldn't see or hear anything. After waiting for a while, Uemo finally couldn't help but poke Yinqing and ask in a low voice, "Hey, it's been so long. Why hasn't there been any movement inside?" He originally thought that the concubine would at least make a scene with His Highness. After being kept in the dark for so long, who wouldn't be angry? Could it be that the concubine has finally been moved by His Highness's good intentions? So Yinqing was speechless and looked at him in disdain. "If you don't need your brain, you can donate it." Uemo was immediately unhappy. "Hey, why are you scolding me? Aren't I just thinking for His Highness and the concubine?" Yinqing turned around to take a look. "You should eat more vegetarian food and pray to Buddha to accumulate merit for your master." Chapter 1090. Inside the room, Chu Luyue and Rongxiu sat facing each other. It was so quiet that even the air seemed to have frozen. There was only a subtle flow of air flowing back and forth between the two of them. Both of them had been silent since they came in. Chu Luyue crossed her arms and looked up and down at the incomparably noble His Highness, the Holy Sun. Rongxiu, on the other hand, was holding a cup of tea in one hand, allowing the newly appointed princess consort to repeatedly examine him. In comparison, he was actually more at ease. After a while, Chu Luyue finally moved forward and put her hands on the table. Her beautiful eyes were half squinted, with a hint of danger. "Your Highness, at this time, you still have the leisure to be so elegant? Drink tea?" Rongxiu took a sip of tea and slowly looked up. His eyes were full of ease. There was a hint of a smile in the corner of his eyes. "After going through so much trouble to choose my favorite princess consort, I have already restrained myself by not celebrating for 3 days and 3 nights. Can't I have a cup of tea and be happy?" Chu Luyue was speechless. Whether this man was in white or black, Prince Li or the Holy Sun, they were all black-hearted. His skin was really thicker than the city walls. For a moment, Chu Luyue didn't know how to refute him. She took a deep breath and kept saying in her heart, "After all, he's my man. I can't kill him, I can't kill him." She leaned back in her chair again and sneered, "Your Highness, if I didn't come here myself this time, how long were you planning to hide your identity?" Rongxiu thought about it carefully and still chose to defend himself. "Previously, when we were in Tianling, I actually mentioned it to you, but I didn't go into detail. It shouldn't be considered deliberately hiding it, right? It would have been better if he didn't mention this, but once he did." Chu Luyue was furious. "That counts as mentioning it. You didn't say that your mother's clan was actually a first-rate clan in the Divine Ruins world. Yuntian Tower. This wasn't an ordinary family background, yet he didn't mention it from the beginning to the end." Rongxiu pondered for a moment, but his tone and expression were much more serious. "At that time, it wasn't very appropriate to tell you these things. Furthermore, there were still some minor issues at the Yuntian Tower that had yet to be resolved. So I originally planned to wait for you to break through to the 9th stage before telling you in detail. I didn't expect." He smiled, and in an instant, all the colors in the world were taken away. His eyes were deep, as if they could make people unconsciously sink into them, unable to extricate themselves. "It's just that I didn't expect you to break through so quickly, and, furthermore, even the totem had awakened. This was much faster than he had expected. It should have been when she broke through to the 7th rank warrior and went through the Ascension Tribulation, which triggered all these." Chu Luyue didn't say anything. In fact, from everything that had happened today, she could also see that Rongxiu's situation at the Yuntian Tower was indeed somewhat dangerous. Not to mention those people at the Immortal Water Tomb. Just those few revered elders didn't seem to be on his side. If it weren't for 36 revered Elder Ming, who could restrain them, she was afraid. Then let's forget about this matter for now. Now let me ask you something else. You must answer honestly." Chu Luyue said firmly. Rongxiu fumbled with the teacup, the bitter and slightly spicy taste of ginger tea still lingering between his lips and teeth. He nodded. "Okay." Chu Luyue was silent for a moment, and unconsciously sat up straight. She looked into the eyes of the man opposite her, and said word by word, "Who exactly am I?" Digression continue at 6 p.m. Chapter 1091. There was complete silence. Rongxiu paused for a moment, and looked up at Chu Luyue. "You're Shengguan Yu, and also Chu Luyue." Chu Luyue frowned. "You know that's not what I'm asking. But these two are indeed your identities." Rongxiu replied. "You should be the one who knows who you are the best." Chu Luyue felt suffocated. She paused. "Rongxiu, I've already remembered some things. You were the one who played chess with me in the octagonal pavilion. You were the one who deliberately drank my ginger tea. You were also the one who made a lifelong promise with me." Chu Luyue looked at him. Every time she said a word, the scene of the past would appear in her mind. Most of it was fragmented and blurry, but these few fragments were very clear. "You knew that I lost part of my memory a long time ago, but you never took the initiative to mention it to me. And in the past that disappeared, the only thing I remember was you. This was enough to explain too many things. We clearly knew each other a long time ago. I even said that I was going to go back and announce our marriage to Imperial Father. But what happened after that?" She didn't remember where they first met, and she didn't know what happened after that promise. After she returned to the Tianling dynasty, she was actually engaged to Jiang Yuqing. And so many things happened after that. She used to think that she liked Jiang Yuqing, but later she met Rongxiu. She realized that she didn't like him. At most, she didn't hate him based on various factors. When she learned that Jiang Yuqing and Shengguan Wan had teamed up, she was more angry and heartbroken at being betrayed by someone she trusted. Thinking about it carefully, she didn't seem to care that much about the fact that they were secretly together. It was just that at that time, she was hurt by a traitor, and was momentarily blinded by anger. All she thought about was revenge. She hadn't noticed it before, but now that she recalled some things, she found a lot of things wrong. Since she and Rongxiu were already together, and even promised to go back and tell Imperial Father about this matter, it was impossible for her to be engaged to other people. Did something happen after she returned to Tianling? Rongxiu looked at her with a deep gaze and sighed. It was as if he was happy, but at the same time, it was as if he was feeling pity for her. "So you've remembered so much. No wonder the totem." He was silent for a while. Then, as if he had made an important decision, he said, "We have indeed known each other since 3 years ago." Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. 3 years ago. It had been a year and a half since her rebirth, and 2.5 years since her death. If they had met 3 years ago. In other words, they knew each other at least half a year before she died? As if he had guessed what Chu Liyue was thinking, Rongxiu smiled and shook his head. "Actually, it's a little longer than you think. Later, you said you wanted to go back, so we separated. But a few months after that, something happened to you. You know what happened after that?" The blood in Chu Liyue's eardrums was gurgling, and it hurt. It was as if an invisible hand had suddenly clenched her heart, making it difficult for her to breathe. Her throat was tight as she asked with difficulty, "So my rebirth in Empire Yao Chun is also related to you?" She was lucky to be reborn in Chu Liyue's body in Empire Yao Chun. Moreover, she happened to meet Rongxiu that day. There were too many coincidences, so it was impossible for people to doubt it. Rongxiu rubbed his finger gently on the teacup when he heard this. The room was silent. Every minute and every second was incomparably torturous. Just when Chu Liyue thought that Rongxiu wouldn't answer, he finally spoke. "Yes, I purposely waited there for your return. Why haven't the two of them come out yet? I don't know what they are talking about. They actually chatted for so long?" 36 respected Elder Ming came to the sacrificial god hall after dealing with some trivial matters after the concubine selection ceremony. He saw Yan Qing and Umo guarding the door from afar, and he couldn't help but ask curiously, "Greetings to 36 respected Elder Ming." The two of them bowed respectfully. 36 respected Elder Ming waved his hand and raised his chin, unable to hide the curiosity in his eyes. "How is it? This, respected Elder, you also know that there are Xian formations and barriers around the sacrificial god hall. If His Highness doesn't want us to hear or see it, he naturally has a way. We also don't know what's going on inside. Umo answered carefully as he looked at the sky that was already turning white. Most of the night had passed, and the sky was already bright. But since the person inside didn't come out, they didn't dare to disturb her. Lass, Princess Consort has been rushing all the way here. It must be very tiring. She might be resting inside. 36 respected Elder Ming stroked his beard and was very understanding. Glancing from the corner of his eyes, his movements suddenly paused. That's the child who came with Princess Consort? He pointed to a small purple figure sitting on a jade stool and asked. Yes. He's been here since yesterday until now. Speaking of this child, Umo and Yinqing also had a headache. Yesterday, when His Highness and Princess Consort returned, this child had been by Princess Consort's side. After that, Princess Consort said that she wanted to have a private chat with His Highness, so she left this child behind. Originally, they had specially arranged a room for him to rest, but no matter how they persuaded him, he was indifferent and just sat there. They thought that it wasn't a big deal for a child to be a little stubborn. At most, they would wait for him to fall asleep before sending him into the room. Who knew that he actually maintained that position and waited until now? Strange. 36 respected Elder Ming narrowed his eyes slightly. That child didn't look like an ordinary child. Moreover, although there weren't any fluctuations of force on his body, he had an inexplicable aura that made people feel reverence. This child, I'm afraid he's not ordinary. 36 respected Elder Ming thought for a while and said, just let him do whatever he wants. Yes. He turned back to look at the tightly shut door. Forget it, I'll come back later. After saying that, he turned around and planned to leave. However, just as he took a few steps, the sound of the door opening came from behind him. Creak. 36 respected Elder Ming, why are you looking for I? Rongxiu's low and slightly hoarse voice sounded. Greetings, Your Highness. Yinqing and Umo hurriedly bowed. 36 respected Elder Ming looked back. Rongxiu was still wearing the same black clothes from yesterday. There were faint dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept for the entire night. 36 respected Elder Ming looked inside, but unfortunately, he didn't see anything. How's Princess Consort? Rongxiu smiled faintly. She's already asleep. She had been constantly on the move during this period of time, and her memory was gradually recovering. She indeed needed a good rest. That's good. 36 respected Elder Ming nodded comfortingly. Immediately, his expression became more serious as he asked in a deep voice. Your Highness, have you heard about what happened at the academy? Chapter 1092. Rongxiu nodded. Yesterday Jiang Jiwan told I some things. 36 respected Elder Ming frowned. Then, Your Highness, what plans do you have? Rongxiu thought for a moment and said, let's settle the matters here first. There's no rush for anything else. 36 respected Elder Ming knew that he was talking about Chu Luiyue. The position of the Princess Consort has been decided. Then, Your Highness, do you want to immediately? Rongxiu shook his head. I might need to wait for a while. I know what to do. 36 respected Elder Ming need not worry. This all right. 36 respected Elder Ming wanted to persuade him again. But seeing Rongxiu's calm and determined expression, he did not continue. I'll deal with it for now. It won't be too late to go after Your Highness has chosen a time. Rongxiu cupped his hands and said seriously, I'll have to trouble you. Hey, don't you have enough trouble for me? I don't need you this time. 36 respected Elder Ming chuckled. Let her have a good rest in these few days. Or let her walk around Yuntian Tower and familiarize herself with it. It was not easy to wait for them to come. He had to give them some time alone. After saying that, 36 respected Elder Ming waved his hand and turned to leave. However, after taking 2 steps, he suddenly stopped and walked back to a position a few steps away from Rongxiu. He lowered his voice and asked curiously and mysteriously, Oh right, when that girl was tested for her bloodline talent, did you see the totem on it clearly? Rongxiu's eyes flickered, and then he shook his head. No. 36 respected Elder Ming immediately looked regretful. That's a pity. I didn't see it clearly at that time. I thought you could see it. He was very clear about Chu Liyue's background. It was also because of this that he was curious about why she had such a shocking bloodline talent in her body. Perhaps there was some secret hidden in this, that even she didn't know about. If he could see the totem clearly, he might be able to follow the clues and find the answer. Unfortunately, then this old man will take his leave first. 36 Respected Elder Ming glanced into the room again. Although she is now the rightful princess consort, there may be trouble in the future. You must take good care of her. Rongxiu nodded. His tone was calm but firm. Don't worry, with me around, I won't let her suffer any more grievances. After the consort selection ceremony, Chu Liyue was chosen as a consort, which made many women envious and jealous. However, they also understood that even though this match was specially prepared by Rongxiu for Chu Liyue, she had indeed won this position with her own strength. Even if they were to do it again, the one who would win would still be her. Therefore, after the matter was over, most of the women were disappointed, but they quickly got over it. However, among them, there were naturally some who were stubborn and couldn't get out of it. Jiang Jiwan was like that. When she saw that Chu Liyue already had the holy ring on her hand, she finally couldn't bear it anymore, and left the scene. At that moment, she understood that everything had nothing to do with her from the beginning to the end. After all these years, she was just imagining things. In the end, she didn't get anything. Instead, she became a laughingstock. She would become a princess consort. This was something that everyone had tacitly agreed upon for many years. It was obvious how those people would look at her now. After returning to the Immortal Water Mausoleum that night, Jiang Juwen was bedridden and had a high fever. This made Jiang Hetian's heart ache even more. He wanted nothing more than to kill those two people, to vent the hatred in his heart. Jiang Hetian sat by the bed and comforted her. Ziyuan, it's not worth it to be so sad over them. There will naturally be better men to match you in the future. Let's not talk about other things. Just in the academy alone, who knows how many people like you? They might not be any worse than Rongxiu. Jiang Jiwen smiled bitterly. Although that was the case, she had liked Rongxiu for a long time. Moreover, for so many years, she had always thought that she would be with him and become his princess consort. She had even fantasized about how the wedding ceremony would be held many times. But now, she had suddenly lost everything. How could she recover in such a short period of time? However, she still nodded reluctantly. I know. After I recover, I will return to the academy directly. Jiang Hetian patted her hand, a ruthless look flashing across his eyes. Don't worry. This time, Rongxiu made the Immortal Water Mausoleum lose face. I will remember this. In the future, I will definitely make him pay 100-fold. After a few more words, 36 Respected Elder Ming left quickly. After his figure completely disappeared, Rongxiu turned his gaze slightly and looked at Dugumabao, who was sitting on a jade stool not far away. He strode over with his long legs and sat directly opposite him. You've been sitting here for an entire night. You should go in and rest. Rongxiu's lips did not move. He only used his mind to convey his thoughts. At this level, many things were much more convenient. Only then did Dugumabao turn his head and look at him coldly. Are you done? Rongxiu smiled faintly. I've said everything that needs to be said. A faint light flashed across Dugumabao's demonic purple eyes. He snorted lightly. So you've only said a part of it. What's the difference between that and not saying anything? According to Rongxiu's character, if he was really willing to tell everything, he would have done so long ago. Why would he drag it out until now? It was obvious that he was just being picky with his words. As for how much that girl recalled, and when she would be able to remember everything, it was still unknown. Rongxiu did not deny it. In the end, I've answered some of her doubts and let her breathe a sigh of relief. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to sleep peacefully now. It was not that he did not want to tell her all the facts, but now was not the best time. You know that even if I tell her everything now, it will only add to her worries. Dugumabao did not reply. Of course, he knew what Rongxiu meant. If he did not think so, he would not have needed to look for Rongxiu. He would have told Chu Liyue everything on the way here. Rongxiu paused and said, Everything will be clear when she breaks through to the God level again. Chapter 1093. Chu Luiyue had a very long dream. In the dream, she was in a strange place. She met a group of strange people and did many strange things. The strangest thing was that she actually dreamed that she was trying to break through to the God realm. Boom! A heavenly tribulation descended. Intense pain spread throughout her body. Chu Luiyue suddenly opened her eyes and woke up. She panted, her heart thumped, and boiling blood flowed through her limbs and bones. The pain seemed to still be lingering. Chu Luiyue subconsciously looked at her surroundings. She was lying on the bed, covered with a cloud brocade quilt unharmed. However, the feeling of being enveloped by the heavenly tribulation in her dream was too realistic, as if she had really experienced it before. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath, and a familiar faint fragrance filled the air. It was Rongxiu's aura. Right, she was now in Rongxiu's bedroom in the sacrificial god temple. Last night, the two of them talked a lot about the part of her memories that she had lost, about their past. They had indeed known each other for a long time, but it was not in Yaochun or Tianling, but in the Divine Ruins world. Rongxiu made it clear that the first time they met, as well as the things that happened afterward, actually happened in the Divine Ruins. He only found out later that she was not from the Divine Ruins world, but from the Tianling dynasty. And after that, something happened to her. Later, Rongxiu felt that something was wrong. He tried his best to find a way to let her reincarnate into Chu Luiyue's body and wait for her to wake up. However, because she was too decisive before she died and chose to die with the Tianjin Yuan meridian, her soul was scattered after she died, and he could only find a part of it. As a result, her soul was incomplete, and she lost a part of her memories. Unfortunately, it was the part of the memory between them. Chu Luiyue rubbed the space between her eyebrows. After a night of rest, she finally regained her energy. After spending some time to sort out yesterday's events, she seemed to have sobered up a lot, but she also had a lot of new questions. This was because she had no idea how she had managed to get to the Divine Ruins world from Tianling. Rongxiu didn't seem to be very clear about this part, because not long after he found out that she came from Tianling, she went back, and he didn't have time to ask. Chu Luiyue walked to the table and poured himself a cup of tea. Smoke lingered in the air, and the air was steaming. It seemed to be freshly brewed. Chu Luiyue's movements paused as a deep thought flashed through his eyes. In fact, last night, she had tried to ask Rongxiu if he knew anything about the Black Pyramid. Rongxiu seemed to know nothing about this. Chu Luiyue had always suspected that the black-clothed man was Rongxiu, but now she was a little shaken. On one hand, the black-clothed man had sealed a part of her soul. If Rongxiu was really him, then he should be busy helping her find a complete soul to recover her memories. On the other hand, in the fragmented memories she recalled, there were two figures that were very clear. One was Rongxiu, and the other was the black-clothed man. But from what she knew, Rongxiu and him were indeed two different people. And Rongxiu didn't seem to know much about that person. As for the truth, perhaps she would have to wait until she remembered everything before she could understand. Thinking of this, Chu Luiyue held her breath and focused. There were already 3 cracks on the Black Pyramid that was quietly floating in her dantian. A golden light faintly seeped out from within. Her fragmented memories should have flowed out from here. It would be great if she could open it. Chu Luiyue gathered her force and prepared to hit it again. Creak! The door suddenly opened. Chu Luiyue paused in her actions and looked up. Rongxiu walked in. "You're up? Why don't you sleep a little longer?" Chu Luiyue nodded. "I've rested enough." Sensing the force surging in her body, Rongxiu's eyebrows twitched slightly. "What were you thinking about just now?" "I was thinking about how to recover my past memories," Chu Luiyue said honestly. Rongxiu felt an inexplicable pain in a certain part of his body. He clenched his fist and coughed. "This matter can't be rushed. Anyway, I've already remembered some of it, and I'll naturally remember it in the future." Chu Luiyue nodded. That was all she could do now. "Your priority now is to improve your cultivation as soon as possible." A cold and cute voice suddenly came from the door. Chu Luiyue looked over and saw a purple figure. Debao, you're here too? Dugu Mabao's face instantly darkened. Rong Xiu kindly reminded her. Ahem, we came in together. Unfortunately, because of her small body, she was completely blocked by Rong Xiu's figure in front of her, so Chu Luiyue did not see her. Chu Luiyue was speechless. Dugu Mabao said word by word. From today onwards, you'll play chess with me for 4 hours every day. No! Chu Luiyue screamed and hugged her head in pain. 4 hours was not considered long for a chess game. After all, sometimes a chess game could drag on for even longer. However, she was playing chess with Dugu Mabao. Chu Luiyue recalled the night when she was dominated by Dugu Mabao's terrifying chess skills. Until now, she had not been able to last more than 15 minutes. Every time, she would be killed after a short while. Most importantly, it was the most miserable kind. For hours, she did not know what kind of torture she would be subjected to. In addition, for 2 hours every day, the puppet I made will spar with you. Dugu Mabao narrowed its eyes. Its originally watery and devilish eyes were now flashing with a murderous glint. Since you're still at the beginner stage of the 7th stage, I'll start with the more basic ones. Let's start with the beginner stage of the 8th stage. Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched. Debao, do you have some misunderstanding about the beginner stage of the 7th stage? Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched, and she struggled to ask. I'm at the beginner stage of the 7th stage, and you want me to spar with the beginner stage of the 8th stage. Isn't this a little? Then let's start with the intermediate stage of the 8th stage. We'll do as you said at the beginning. Chu Luiyue's strong desire to live made her react quickly. Based on her understanding of Dugu Mabao, he would definitely do what he said. As long as she was still alive, he would not go easy on her. Dugu Mabao glanced at her, as if he had seen through her thoughts, and said directly, I'll only give you 10 days. After 10 days, you'll be at the intermediate stage of the 8th stage. Chu Luiyue. Debao, I was wrong. This is the Yuntian Tower. The density of the force of heaven and earth is enough to speed up your cultivation by several times. Moreover, you've recovered your Tianjing Yuan meridian, so it should be even more so. Dugu Mabao frowned as he spoke, and his eyes were filled with disdain. You've been at the beginner stage of the 7th stage for too long. Chu Luiyue? Chapter 1094. How does it feel to have a powerful senior personally and carefully teaching you? Chu Luiyue finally understood. It was simply purgatory on earth. She used to think that she was diligent enough in her cultivation, but after meeting Dugu Mabao, she knew that she was wrong. According to him, the weak should have the self-awareness of the weak. Anyway, the consort selection ceremony was over, and the matters here had come to an end for the time being. It was time to cultivate properly. Chu Luiyue tried to defend herself. Actually, I shouldn't be that bad, right? Yesterday, I even measured 11 on the infinite divine dial. Dugu Mabao seemed unmoved and looked up lazily. So what? Aren't you still a mere rank 7 warrior? Chu Luiyue felt that she had been dealt a heavy blow again. Suddenly, she thought of something and looked up at the 2 people in front of her. By the way, there's something I forgot to ask before. Your Highness chessboard seems to be similar to Debao's? Dugu Mabao and Rong Xiu both fell silent. After a moment, Dugu Mabao said, Pack up first. I'll come back in 15 minutes. With that, he put his hands behind his back and walked away with his head held high. But for some reason, Chu Luiyue felt that his back view was inexplicably guilty. She glanced at Rong Xiu from the corner of her eye. Rong Xiu said warmly, Senior is powerful, and it's a rare opportunity to cultivate with him. You must cherish it. I won't disturb you. With that, he also planned to turn around and leave. Wait. Chu Luiyue suddenly called out to him. Have the people of the various tribes left? Rong Xiu turned around. Some have already left, but a small number are still here. As if guessing what she wanted to ask, Rong Xiu added, The people of Cave Heaven Cliff are still here. Chu Luiyue was relieved. That's good. I promised to treat Lin Qifei's illness. The Lin family head has treated me well, so I can't go back on my word. She looked at Rong Xiu. I wonder if you can ask them to stay here for a few days and let them leave after Lin Jifei's body recovers? Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. Actually, there are a few celestial physicians in the Yuntian Tower, and they are quite strong. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment and shook his head. Since we've already agreed to it, it's naturally not good to go back on our words. Moreover, the main problem with his body had already been solved. He only needed to recuperate for a few more days. It wouldn't take much effort. Rong Xiu paused and suddenly took a step forward. He pinched her chin with one hand and leaned over to kiss her. She was sitting while he was standing, so there was a height difference. Suddenly bending down like this, a strong sense of oppression attacked. Before Chu Luiyue could react, she was surrounded by the familiar cold fragrance on his body. The next moment, her lips were slightly cold, but quickly turned hot. Chu Luiyue subconsciously reached out and hooked her arms around his neck. She tilted her head slightly and pushed herself forward. Rong Xiu held her waist with one hand, as if he wanted to crush her and integrate her into his body. Her waist was thin and soft, and her body was warm and soft. Chu Luiyue snorted softly. Her voice was gentle and lingering. Rong Xiu's hands suddenly tightened. Then Chu Luiyue leaned over to his ear. She could even see the tips of his crimson ears. Her breath was like orchids as she whispered softly in his ear. Your Highness is most adorable when you're weak and delicate. No man would be able to remain calm after hearing this. Not to mention the current situation. However, just as Rong Xiu was about to move, Chu Luiyue suddenly broke away from his embrace and patted his shoulder lightly. Alright, it's getting late. Your Highness, I won't send you off. With that, she got up to leave. Rong Xiu hugged her from behind. Chu Luiyue was now considered tall and slender among women, but compared to Rong Xiu, she was still small. His iron arms wrapped around her, easily trapping her tightly in his embrace, not leaving a single gap between them. Rong Xiu rested his chin on her shoulder. His voice was hoarse and restrained. You did it on purpose. Chu Luiyue snorted softly. It's fine as long as your Highness understands. Rong Xiu paused for a while before saying regretfully, we should have gotten married earlier. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows and turned to look at him. Why don't your Highness tell me more about our past? Rong Xiu suddenly laughed softly. Immediately after, he tapped her lips and lowered his voice. Pillow talk shouldn't be like this. His voice was low and pleasant, with a hint of hoarseness. Chu Luiyue's ears heated up. After barely managing to win back half of the game, Rong Xiu finally stopped. He carefully reminded her of some things before leaving. In the blink of an eye, only Chu Luiyue was left in the room. She looked back at the door, narrowed her eyes and snorted softly. She could hide now, but she couldn't hide forever. She would eventually find out what she needed to know. Not long after Chu Luiyue tidied up, Duge Mabao came in again according to the previous agreement. At this time, Chu Luiyue was already sitting at the chess table by the window, obviously waiting for him. Seeing him come in, Chu Luiyue smiled and said, "De Bao, sit." Duge Mabao calmly walked over and sat opposite her. Let's begin, Chu Luiyue said. Duge Mabao's sleeves moved slightly. He looked up at her, seemingly hesitant. Chu Luiyue said seriously, I promise I won't ask about those things again. Duge Mabao waved his chubby hand. Several rays of light flew out and instantly intertwined between the two of them to form a chessboard. It's not that I can't tell you. Duge Mabao placed a piece first and said in a vague manner, the faster you break through, the stronger you become, and the more you will know. Chu Luiyue nodded and placed a piece as well. I know. After Rong Xiu came out of the bedroom, he went straight to the study. It had only been a day, but there were many booklets on the table. It was obvious that most of them were related to Chu Luiyue being chosen as the princess consort. Of course, because Chu Luiyue was chosen openly, they did not have any serious reasons to refute, except for her birth. Although Chu Luiyue's level 11 on the infinite divine dial was already tested, in the eyes of some people, this was far from enough. Rong Xiu casually opened the booklets and dismissed them all. Clearly, he did not intend to pay attention to them. Since his title was already confirmed, no matter what they did, they would not cause any trouble. When Rong Xiu finished dealing with the last booklet, A strong aura suddenly came from the outside at high speed. Rongxiu's eyes flickered as he looked up. The door of the study was wide open. The next moment, a figure appeared at the door. It was Elder Tongchuan. Rongxiu smiled and said casually, "Elder Tongchuan, why are you back so soon?" Elder Tongchuan's face was filled with unconcealable anger. He strode in and said angrily, "So your highness purposely sent me away to choose that unknown Shangguan Yu as the princess consort?" Chapter 1095. The smile on Rongxiu's face faded, and a layer of frost covered his eyes. "Respected Elder Tongchuan, please watch your words. Yu is now the princess consort of Yuntian Tower, and you cannot insult her so casually." Insult? Respected Elder Tongchuan also had a stomach full of anger. Only the heavens knew how angry he was when he heard this news and understood the cause and effect of this matter. Is there anything wrong with this old man's words? Isn't her origin unknown? On the surface, she says that she is an outsider, but she clearly has an extremely tyrannical bloodline talent in her body. Until now, no one knows what her identity is. In addition, she has also contracted with 2 spiritual beasts. This does not conform to common sense. If your highness said that there is nothing fishy about her, would you believe it yourself? In any case, there are too many suspicious points about this woman, and she really cannot bear the responsibility of being the princess consort. Rongxiu's expression was indifferent as he leaned back on the chair and crossed his arms in front of him. "Respected Elder Tongchuan, you came back today just to criticize I and the princess consort? If not for your highness's improper actions, this old man would not have to do this." Respected Elder Tongchuan's face was full of anger. "Not only this old man, your highness had also sent the other respected elders out for various reasons. It was all to set up this situation in advance. Isn't that right? Your highness is like this for a woman. It really makes my heart cold." Actually, this matter was very simple. At the start, Rongxiu had accepted the Ming tribe's opinion and agreed to hold the princess consort selection ceremony, and had requested for all the tribes to gather. To anyone who heard this, they would think that he was going to hold a proper princess consort selection. According to this process, the final result should be Immortal Water Tomb's Jiang Ji1. If he was willing, he could also choose a concubine and so on. Thus, including respected Elder Tongchuan and the rest, no one thought too much about it. Even when the respected elders were sent out before the princess consort selection ceremony, they also did not think about it. Who would have thought that Rongxiu had actually decided to choose that Shangguan Yu from the start? Immortal Water Tomb is the head of the 28 tribes, and has been loyal to the Yuntian Tower for thousands of years. Eldest Miss Jiang is deeply loved by the tribe leader, and is already the most suitable candidate for the princess consort. Your highness has never thought that your actions will undoubtedly cause the Immortal Water Tomb's reputation. Eldest Miss Jiang also. This is I's princess consort selection, not you. Rongxiu interrupted him in a seemingly smiling manner, but there was no happiness in his eyes. In the end, the Tomb of Immortal Water is only one of the 28 tribes. It should comply with all of Yin Tiang's decisions. Princess consorts is princess consort, eyes of her. Respected Elder Tongchuan. Even the patriarch has never admitted in public that he wants to choose Jiang Ziyuan as his princess consort. What if I don't choose her? Will the Immortal Water Tomb rebel? Rongxiu's every word was loud and clear, and it was majestic. When he said the last word, his eyes were filled with coldness. Furthermore, respected Elder Tongchuan, for you to barge into I's study and question I, doesn't it seem inappropriate? Tongchuan's heart trembled. He was too angry, and had almost lost his mind. That was why he barged in without a care. He had almost forgotten that the Rongxiu of today was no longer the youth who could be bullied by anyone. Respected Elder Tongchuan took a deep breath and continued. If your highness insists on doing things your own way, then there's nothing we can do. This news will spread very quickly. If the Academy insists on removing Shangguan Yu's princess consort, your highness, please be prepared. Digression. A February with a stomachache until 1 in the morning, 6 in the evening. Chapter 1096. Elder Tong Chuan, you don't have to worry about that. Rongxiu chuckled. If you are really upset about this, why don't you spend some time comforting Lord Jiang and Lady Jiang at the Immortal Water Mausoleum? After all, you have always been on good terms with them. Tong Chuan's heart skipped a beat as he panicked. He quickly glanced at Rongxiu. Did Rongxiu know something? However, there was only a faint smile on Rongxiu's elegant and devilish face. His eyes were deep, and nothing could be seen. The Son of God was getting more and more ruthless, and his thoughts were getting more and more unpredictable. Elder Tong Chuan felt troubled. He took a deep breath and gave himself a way out. That won't be necessary. I am the elder of Yuntian Tower. I should keep my distance from the other tribes. How can I do such a thing? I am here today for the sake of His Highness and the entire Yuntian Tower. If I have offended you, I hope His Highness can forgive me. Rongxiu didn't seem to mind. He smiled and nodded. Of course, Lord Tong Chuan has been loyal to the Yuntian Tower for many years. How can I be unhappy with you over such a small matter? That's good, that's good. Tong Chuan's voice became softer. For some reason, Rongxiu looked normal, but he was getting more and more agitated. After a few more words, he hurriedly left. Looking at his back, Rongxiu narrowed his eyes and curled his lips in disappointment. Truly, unable to withstand a single blow. He had only vaguely mentioned it, yet he was already so flustered. It was rare to be able to be arrogant in the Yuntian Tower for so many years. Thinking about the academy, Rongxiu's eyes darkened. He picked up his pen and wrote a letter. Chu Luyue was unaware of the infighting in the outside world. She was playing chess with Dugu Ma Bao. Pa. Dugu Ma Bao waved his finger and placed a piece on the chessboard. Chu Luyue lost. Bam! The chessboard disappeared. Chu Luyue rubbed her face. I lost again. Dugu Ma Bao's expression was calm. You've improved a little, but it's still not enough. Chu Luyue gave him a sad look. An extra 5 steps is considered an improvement? In these 4 hours, she couldn't even remember how many times she had lost. And after all this was over, her only improvement was that she could take 5 more pitiful steps. Moreover, it was only that one time. Rongxiu should have played chess with you before, right? How many steps can he take under your hands? Chu Luyue's. Dugu Ma Bao looked up slightly and glanced at her. Can't. Chu Luyue was speechless. Was there a need to ask? Of course, she knew that Dugu Ma Bao was stronger than her. Even though Dugu Ma Bao defeated her by half a move in the consort selection ceremony, she knew that he hadn't shown his true strength. Thinking about how she hadn't won against him properly even once, Chu Luyue felt very unhappy. Then let's continue. Dugu Ma Bao shook his head. It's time to practice something else. If you want to continue, you can wait until tomorrow. Chu Luyue suddenly remembered that Dugu Ma Bao had asked her to set aside 4 hours to practice with the puppet he made. She looked around. It doesn't seem appropriate here, does it? Dugu Ma Bao jumped down and walked outside. The sacrificial god temple is huge. Where can't we practice? After Chu Luyue came out, she realized that she was worrying too much. Dugu Ma Bao seemed to have made arrangements, and Yanqing led them to the training field at the back of the temple. On the way, Chu Luyue didn't see anyone else other than those soldiers in black armor. She didn't feel it when she came up last night, but now, she realized that the sacrificial god temple's security was extremely strict. Those who were chosen to stay here were naturally very strong and well-trained soldiers. Chu Luyue noticed that most of them had the smell of blood on them. Obviously, these were people who had experienced life and death battles. Chu Luyue's understanding of the Yuntian Tower increased. The first-rate clan of the Divine Ruins was indeed not to be underestimated. The training field covered a large area, and the ground was paved with black jade. A huge Yuntian Tower totem could be vaguely seen in the middle. Strangely, there was no one guarding here. Other than the 3 of them, there was no one else. It was even more deserted than outside. Yanqing explained. Princess Consort, this is His Highness Martial Arts training ground. Usually, only His Highness comes here. Without His Highness's permission, no one else is allowed to enter. Chu Luyue nodded in understanding. And it was specially used. His Highness has already ordered that you two can come and go as you please. If you need anything, just tell me. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows and teased. Only here? Can we get out of the sacrificial god temple? Yanqing's iceberg face cracked for a moment, but soon returned to normal. You are wearing the holy ring on your hand, and now your status in the Yuntian Tower is almost the same as the Holy Sun. Naturally, you can go wherever you want. This sounded good. You can go down first, Duge Mabao said. These words were directed at Yanqing. Yanqing bowed respectfully. Yes, this subordinate is waiting outside. After saying that, she quickly retreated without hesitation. Looks like Yanqing and the rest know you too. Chu Luiyue looked back. Yanqing had already left, and the door was closed. Duge Mabao did not reply and only raised his chin. Now, you can go up. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows, tipped her toes, and jumped to the center of the training field. Let's begin. Duge Mabao waved his wrist, and a purple light flew out. Bang! In the next moment, a tall figure appeared in front of Chu Luiyue. This was a bronze puppet. It was unknown what material was used to make it, but it looked neither gold nor jade. Under the sunlight, it had a faint luster. Chu Luiyue already had experience. She knew that although this puppet looked stiff, it was actually very agile. Other than not being able to use force, it was almost no different from a real person. Swish! A purple light flashed across the puppet's eyes. In the next moment, it took the initiative to attack. It went straight for Chu Luiyue. In an instant, it was in front of him. Chu Luiyue was shocked. So fast. It was indeed an early-stage rank 8. The bronze puppet punched out, aiming directly at Chu Luiyue's face. Chu Luiyue raised his arm to block. Bang! A dull sound of collision was heard. A wave of pain came, but it was much better than what Chu Luiyue had expected. Although you are only an early-stage rank 7, you have benefited from going through the god's tribulation. Your physical strength and other aspects have been greatly enhanced. Your real strength is actually at the peak of rank 7. Duge Mabao's voice was heard. His eyes swept across Chu Luiyue's face. Looks like it won't take 10 days. Let's change it to 5 days. Chapter 1097. Before Chu Luiyue could react, the puppet in front of her was already closing in on her again. It swept its long leg and kicked Chu Luiyue directly. A cold wind blew, and Chu Luiyue immediately dodged. However, the puppet was faster. He kicked her in the waist. Chu Luiyue staggered, but she endured the pain. Taking advantage of the situation, she turned around, grabbed the puppet's ankle, and flung it fiercely. Bam! The tall and heavy puppet fell heavily to the ground. However, it did not feel pain and kicked Chu Luiyue without hesitation. Chu Luiyue made a prompt decision to retreat. The puppet followed closely behind. Chu Luiyue was no match for it now, and was almost being chased by it. Hence, she could only use all kinds of nimble methods to fight for a chance for herself. The two of them were entangled in a fight. From time to time, all kinds of muffled sounds of collision could be heard. Duge Mabao was at the side of the field, standing with his hands behind his back and watching quietly. There was no expression on her cute little face. Only a pair of eyes were fixed on the field. She was being beaten up now so that she would not be beaten up in the future. And she could even beat up others. It would be a lie to say that he did not feel sorry for her. However, this was not the first time something like this had happened anyway. In the end, he still had to let her break through as soon as possible. For hours passed by very slowly. When Chu Luiyue finally found an opportunity to find her opponent's loophole and barely restrained him, her body was already covered in wounds. It was obvious that her body was already covered in bruises. Fortunately, Chu Luiyue still had force to use, so her internal organs were not hurt. Duge Mabao nodded and recalled the puppet. That's all for today. Chu Luiyue let out a long breath, her legs so weak that she almost fell to the ground. Duge Mabao looked at the sky. You can arrange the rest of the time yourself. Then he turned around and left. Debeo, where are you going? Chu Luiyue asked. Duge Mabao stopped in his tracks. Cultivate. Chu Luiyue had never expected to hear this word from Duge Mabao. His strength was unfathomably strong, and it seemed that even 36 respected Elder Ming and the others did not see anything fishy about him. So you also need to cultivate? Chu Liyue couldn't help but sigh. Dugumabao turned back to look at her. He seemed a little embarrassed, but he stopped himself from saying anything. In the end, he left at an even faster speed. Of course, he would continue to cultivate. Otherwise, he would be trapped in this tiny body for the rest of his life. However, he really couldn't bring himself to say such words to Chu Liyue, so he could only leave without another word. Chu Liyue rubbed his nose. Well, although Dabao was strong, it was obvious that he was not completely without worries. She rested on the spot for a while, then sat cross-legged, closed her eyes, and adjusted her breathing. At the same time, she kept replaying the scene of her battle with the puppet. This kind of puppet could not use the force of heaven and earth, so its melee combat strength was extremely strong. Whether it was strength, agility, or other aspects, it was stronger than a real cultivator of the same level. And its moves were also extremely ruthless and accurate. Chu Liyue went through all the details of the fight in her mind, and carefully comprehended it. She only opened her eyes after she had completely understood it. It was already afternoon. Chu Liyue thought for a while, then walked to the door. Yanqing was waiting. "Greetings, princess," Chu Liyue asked. "Where are those people from Heavenly Cave Cliff now?" Lin Tianfeng and the others were still living in the same place as before. Previously, Yanqing had said that she could let them move to a better place, but Lin Tianfeng had declined. Lin Tianfeng knew very well that all the benefits they enjoyed after coming to Yuntian Tower were actually thanks to Chu Liyue. She might not mind, but Lin Tianfeng did not want that. If it were not for Lin Qifei's body not yet fully recovered, they might have left long ago. Lin Tianfeng's only request was to be able to see Chu Liyue again and ask her to help cure Lin Qifei's illness completely. But he was not sure. Although they got along well with Chu Liyue before, she was now the princess of Yuntian Tower, and her status was different from before. Therefore, Lin Tianfeng's heart was full of uneasiness, and he could only look out the door from time to time, hoping to see that familiar figure again. However, their behavior was very laughable in the eyes of the people living with them in Cold Mountain Valley. "Oh, Master Lin, you're very lucky this time." Han Quan stood across from him and said somewhat cynically. Lin Tianfeng ignored him. Han Quan sneered. "We're already packing up and getting ready to leave." "Why, Master Lin, you're not leaving?" "That's right. It wasn't easy to find someone to rely on. If it were me, of course I wouldn't be willing to leave," Han Quan said sourly. It was impossible to say that he did not envy Lin Tianfeng and the others. Originally, Cave Heaven Cliff was a little worse than Cold Mountain Valley. But now, because they happened to meet Shangguanyu, their situation was completely different. Although there was a lot of controversy about the position of Shangguanyu's princess, it was an existence that they could only dream of but not reach. Who wouldn't be jealous that Cave Heaven Cliff could climb such a high branch? But if you ask me, she's already a princess now, so why would she care about you? Lin family head, are you really going to stay here like this? Lin Tianfeng frowned. It's none of your business. Puffed. Han Quan crossed his arms and sneered coldly. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Shangguanyu is very popular now, but she stole Miss Zhang's princess position from the immortal water tomb. They won't let this go. For the time being, they can't do anything to Shangguanyu. But can't they use the people around her to sharpen their knives? In the future. I didn't expect Valley Master Han to know so much about the Yuntian Tower. A clear voice sounded. Han Quan was shocked. Lin Tianfeng, on the other hand, looked happy. "Du, greets the princess." He immediately reacted and bowed respectfully when he saw the person who had come. Chu Liyue helped him up. "You're welcome, Master Lin. I'm here today to treat the fourth young master. I was dealing with some matters before, so it took a while for me to come." Lin Tianfeng was so excited that he didn't know what to say. "Thank you for your concern, princess. Jifei is inside, please." Chu Liyue nodded slightly and glanced at him from the corner of her eye. "Yanqing, since Valley Master Han is so insightful, why don't we keep them here for a few more days? When His Highness has time, we can invite him to listen to Valley Master Han's advice." "Yes, Han Quan's face paled. He was about to explain, but Chu Luiyue ignored him and left with Lin Tianfeng. On the other side, Rong Xiu came out of the study and went straight to his bedroom, but Chu Luiyue wasn't there. "Where's the princess?" Rong Xiu asked. Yuemo lowered his head. "The princess went to treat the fourth young master." Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows. He really missed the days when he was weak and sick. Chapter 1098. Chu Luiyue followed Lin Tianfeng into the room. Upon hearing the commotion, Lin Qifei came out to welcome her. Paying respects to Her Highness, Lin Qifei bowed respectfully. Even though it had only been a day, the identity of the woman before him had already undergone a tremendous change. Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. "Fourth young master Lin, there's no need to stand on ceremony. I promised to treat you, so naturally, I won't go back on my words. Please take a seat." Only then did Lin Qifei sit down. Chu Luiyue took his pulse and pondered for a moment. "Your body has already recovered by 60%. You should be able to make a full recovery in just a few more days." "Thank you, Her Highness." At the side, Lin Tianfeng could not suppress his excitement and said gratefully. In the past, Chu Luiyue was willing to help them because she wanted to obtain their help. But now, despite her astounding identity, she was still willing to help them. This was on a completely different level. Naturally, Lin Tianfeng was moved by her words. Lin Qifei smiled, and there was a trace of ripples in his clear eyes. "Actually, the main problem has already been resolved. You can just leave the rest to the other celestial physician. There's no need for Her Highness to go to such lengths." "Other celestial physician?" Chu Luiyue released her hand, raised her brows and laughed. "Elder Lu Ruhai." The room immediately fell silent. There was no one else in the room other than the four of them, so there wasn't much apprehension between them. Lin Tianfeng frowned. "He did offend Her Highness several times in the past, and I didn't expect him to say such words in front of everyone in the ethereal hall. To publicly accuse Chu Luiyue of being an outsider, wasn't he trying to make things difficult for her? If not for Rong Xiu and 36 respected Elder Ming's protection, as well as Chu Luiyue's outstanding performance, who knew what would have happened?" Chu Luiyue walked to the side and wrote down a prescription. As he wrote, he said, "Lu Ruhai and I have no grudge against each other, but he is targeting me so boldly and arrogantly. Don't you find it strange at all, Master Lin?" Lin Tianfeng's expression changed. "Princess consort, you mean? If he's only making things difficult for me because I cured Lin Qifei and did what he couldn't do, then he's too petty. However, no matter what, he's still a 9-star pinnacle celestial physician. All he has to do is use some means to punish me. Why must he bring this matter to the ethereal hall?" Chu Luiyue put down the pen and carefully reviewed the prescription before handing it over to Yin Qing. "Please get me some medicine." Yin Qing took it with both hands, responded respectfully and left quickly. This was the Yuntian Tower, and Chu Luiyue was the newly appointed princess consort. No one dared to do anything to her. Thus, Yin Qing wasn't worried at all. She quickly went to get the medicine. Lin Tianfeng wasn't a fool. He immediately understood what Chu Luiyue was trying to say. "Princess consort, you're saying that someone instigated Lu Ruhai to do this?" Suddenly, his expression changed. The person who did this had to be related to them, and had the ability to do so. After thinking about it, there was only one person who could do it. "It's Luiyue," he muttered in disbelief. Chu Luiyue chuckled. "It seems like Master Lin is still clear-headed." Lin Tianhai's face turned green and red. How can that be? Lu Ruhai has been loyal to our Lin clan for decades, and Yue has only been here for a short while. Fourth young master has been ill for as long as she has been in the Lin clan. Chu Luiyue said meaningfully. Lin Tianfeng was shocked. Chu Luiyue's words contained too much information. Could it be that Jifei's illness was caused by her? He looked back at Lin Qifei, only to see that his expression was calm and indifferent, as if he wasn't shocked at all. Lin Qifei had known about it for a long time. Lin Tianfeng felt as if he had been struck by lightning. "Master Lin, Please don't misunderstand. Fourth young master was indeed born with this illness, and it wasn't inflicted on him by someone else. Of course, his illness in his mother's womb was benefited by someone else, Chu Liyue said calmly. In just a few words, he had revealed the Lin clan's huge secret that had been hidden for many years. Lin Tianfeng trembled, his face pale, and he couldn't speak. Father, don't worry. Your son's body has recovered. I didn't tell you before, because I didn't want you to worry, Lin Qifei explained. But you can rest assured now. Lin Tianfeng took a while to process this. Then Lu Ruhai has been saying that he can't cure you all these years. Could it be that he was also pretending? That wasn't a pretense. Lin Qifei smiled faintly. He really doesn't have the ability. If he hadn't met Chu Liyue, he wouldn't have thought that he would have a chance to turn things around. He didn't say it before because he had many concerns. But now, Chu Liyue was the princess of Yuntian Tower, and Lu Ruhai had dug his own grave and made such a big trouble for himself. He might as well take the opportunity to get rid of him once and for all. Chu Liyue took out a bead. This was taken from fourth young master's body before. It's also the cause of his illness. Louis once admitted that it was his sister who did it. Lin Tianfeng was shocked. But he had to believe it. Because Chu Liyue didn't have to lie to him about this. Lu Yu, her brother, and Lu Ruhai did offend her. But with her current status, she could easily kill them. Why would she make up such a lie? She has someone behind her? Lin Tianfeng thought for a while and asked. Chu Liyue handed over the bead. I wonder if Master Lin recognizes the pattern on it. Lin Tianfeng carefully took the bead with both hands and looked at it carefully. After a moment, he frowned and shook his head. This seems to be the totem of some clan, but I've never seen it. Is this the person behind Lu Yuer? Lin Tianfeng's voice trembled slightly when he spoke. It was indeed difficult for him to accept these things in such a short time. After all, he had always trusted and doted on Lu Yuer all these years. He even had some opinions about Lin Qifei, because he didn't approve of Lu Yuer. Now it seemed ridiculous. Chu Liyue shook her head regretfully. In fact, this result was already within her expectations. Then it seems that we need to look again. Lin Qifei stepped forward and took the bead. Father, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. When my body fully recovers, I will seek justice for myself. Lin Tianfeng's lips moved and he sighed, as if he had aged a few years in an instant. He patted Lin Qifei's shoulder and said in a deep voice, Don't worry. When we go back this time, Father will deal with them personally. As for Lu Ruhai, he had automatically abandoned the word elder. A traitor was no longer qualified to be called that. How about we leave it to the princess? Chu Liyue touched her chin and smiled. Good. Chapter 1099. At this moment Lu Ruhai, who was next door, also knew that Chu Liyue had arrived. He paced around the room anxious and worried. As a pinnacle 9th grade celestial physician, he was generally respected wherever he went. Therefore, he had always been very arrogant, and did not take others seriously. He was also used to having an arrogant temper. But this time, he knew very well that he had kicked an iron plate. Ever since Chu Liyue's identity as princess consort was confirmed during the consort selection ceremony last night, he was dumbfounded. He did not even remember how he came back. There was only one sentence echoing in his mind. It's over. It's all over. It would have been fine if he had offended others, but he had offended Chu Liyue. Moreover, looking at the saint's protection of her, he knew that he had completely offended the saint this time. Lu Ruhai had been feeling uneasy ever since he returned. Originally, he had hoped that Chu Liyue and the rest would be busy with their own matters, and would not care too much about other things. But she still came. Lu Ruhai could not wait to rush over and listen to what they were talking about. The current him still did not know that his fate had actually been decided during the idle conversation between the few of them. Yanqing quickly returned. Chu Liyue placed a medicinal cauldron in the room and helped him refine medicine. Of course, she did not use the heavenly square cauldron. Lin Qifei's body was in the final stage of recuperation. He did not even need to refine the medicine. He only needed to brew the medicine. In about an hour, The medicine was ready. The rich medicinal fragrance filled the entire room. Taking a deep breath made one's body and mind feel much better. Lin Tianfeng's original grief and anger also magically calmed down. Lin Qifei used the medicine. His originally pale face gained some color. Actually, his body recovered faster than Chu Luiyue expected. On one hand, Lin Qifei was talented. On the other hand, the rich force of heaven and earth in the Yuntian Tower was very good for the body's recuperation and cultivation. Chu Luiyue looked at Lin Tianfeng. I'll have to trouble Master Lin to invite Lu Ruhai over. Lin Tianfeng was stunned for a moment then nodded. After he left, Lin Qifei looked at Chu Luiyue and said firmly, "Thank you. Is there anything else I can help you with?" Chu Luiyue smiled. Lin Qifei was indeed smart. Dealing with smart people was indeed a lot easier. I do have something that I would like to ask for your help with. What? I would like to ask you to help me build a teleportation array formation. Lin Qifei's eyes flashed slightly. Deep in his eyes, which were as clear as a lake, there seemed to be some waves. I'll go wherever I come from. Chu Luiyue blinked. From the Cave Heaven Cliff to the Tianling dynasty. As soon as he finished speaking, the room fell into a dead silence. Lin Qifei subconsciously looked at Yin Qing, who was standing next to him. Yin Qing works for His Highness. Don't worry. No one will know about this. Chu Luiyue said with a smile. Anyway, Rong Xiu would know what she wanted to do sooner or later, so she might as well be frank. Lin Qifei's expression changed slightly. He was really surprised. His Highness doesn't know about this? He will pretend not to know even if he knows. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows and smiled meaningfully. Her words were very natural and firm. At this moment, Lin Qifei suddenly understood why her eyes were always curved and bright when she talked about her husband. Because she had always trusted and relied on that person. Perhaps she didn't even realize that she was acting coquettishly. Lin Qifei paused. The sects and clans in the world of divine ruins are not allowed to connect with the outside world privately, let alone build teleportation formations. That's why I came to you. Chu Luiyue smiled carelessly. If it were anyone else, they probably wouldn't have the guts. Even if they had the guts, they wouldn't have the ability. But you have both fourth young Master Lin. The Cave Heaven Cliff guards a door. You know better than anyone how to do this. Besides, you will be the Cliff Master of the Cave Heaven Cliff sooner or later. It is your territory. It would be best if you are willing to help. I can guarantee that this will be kept a secret. You will not be implicated in any trouble. Fourth young Master Lin, do you agree? Lin Qifei was silent for a moment. Then he smiled helplessly. Since you've already put it this way, how can I refuse? Chu Luiyue had saved his life. It was only right that he repay her with his life. Besides, she didn't hesitate at all. She believed that he could do it. This was the greatest affirmation for him. Lin Qifei knew that he was talented in this area. But he had been seriously ill for many years, and didn't dare to have any delusions. He only hid in the dark and occasionally acted. He was not without regrets. Young people were always full of youthful vigor, who didn't want to achieve great things. It's a deal. Chu Luiyue smiled. Fourth young Master Lin, I look forward to working with you. Lu Ruhai was quickly brought over. Chu Luiyue and the others in the room had already recovered. No one could guess what had happened in that short period of time. Elder Lu Chu Luiyue greeted him with a smile. Why do you look so tired today? Did you not have enough fun yesterday? Lu Ruhai's heart skipped a beat. Greetings, Your Highness. As he spoke, he bowed with trepidation. Chu Luiyue sat there, and slowly poured a cup of tea. But she didn't drink it. Time passed slowly. Lu Ruhai bowed and held his hands. He felt uncomfortable all over. He specialized in celestial physician. His cultivation level as a martial artist was very ordinary. So when Chu Luiyue deliberately exerted pressure, he couldn't bear it. It wasn't until his legs started to tremble, and his face turned red, that Chu Luiyue spoke casually. Elder Lu, you don't have to be so polite. I'm here today because I have some questions for you. Chu Luiyue looked up at him as she spoke. Her dark and sharp eyes were like blades that could cut through everything. Who is Lu Yuer's backer? Lu Ruhai was shocked. He suddenly raised his head, but when he met those cold eyes, He quickly lowered his head. I don't know what your highness is talking about. Yanqing. Chu Liyue called out lazily. Yanqing stepped forward with an expressionless face and kicked Lu Ruhai's knee hard. Crack. The sound of bones breaking was particularly crisp. Ah! Lu Ruhai screamed and knelt on the ground. He wanted to curse out loud, but he didn't forget that the other party was now someone he couldn't afford to offend. So he could only ask Lin Tianfeng for help. Master, save me. Chu Liyue interrupted him. Elder Lu, there's no need to shout. Master Lin has already taken the initiative to give you to me. Life or death, it's all up to her. Lu Ruhai's heart sank. He forced himself to raise his head. His lips were pale. Why your highness just took the throne, but you can't wait to kill someone who offended you. Aren't you afraid of being criticized for being narrow-minded and ruthless? Chu Liyue suddenly smiled and said word by word. It's because you just took the throne that you have to set rules. Chapter 1100. Everyone knew that Lu Ruhai had offended her. If she let it go just like that, no one would thank her for her generosity. They would only think that she was weak and easy to bully. Someone had come knocking on her door and almost humiliated her in public. This kind of thing could be tolerated, but should not be tolerated. If they knew that even someone like Lu Ruhai could escape unscathed from her, who knew how much trouble they would cause in the future? Chu Liyue clearly remembered that when she first came here, those people in Cold Mountain Valley were still talking about how the people of the immortal water tomb would deal with her. If even people of their status could think of this, it could be seen that others also thought so. Chu Liyue came from outside the realm, although she had performed outstandingly before, on the mountaintop, when she faced the infinite divine dial. The results were even more stunning. But in the end, she did not have the support of a powerful sect behind her. So what if she was the emperor of the Tianling dynasty? In the eyes of these people, she was still not worth mentioning. Therefore, she had to let these people understand that she was not to be trifled with. Apart from that, she had another purpose for interrogating Lu Ruhai. She wanted to find out who Lu Yuer's backer was, in case the enemy was in the dark, while she was in the light, and she did not know when she would be schemed against. After all, she was now on the same side as Lin Qifei. If she could really connect Heavenly Cave Cliff and the Tianling dynasty with the teleportation formation, then it would be much more convenient for her to travel between these two places in the future. Moreover, it would not be just her. With her current status, of course, she could enter and leave the Divine Ruins world as she pleased, but there were also great limitations. Rongxiu, as the Holy Sun, was watched by many people. In the future, she would certainly not lack the same treatment. From this point of view, Chu Liyue hoped that she could not rely on Rongxiu and establish her own power and influence. This way, she could leave another path open. Elder Lu, the sooner you explain clearly, the sooner you will suffer less, won't you? Chu Liyue smiled leisurely. She was clearly smiling, but it made people unconsciously feel a deep sense of fear. Lu Ruhai's eyes averted. I don't know. I really. Yanqing, help Elder Lu Ruhai recall. See if he can remember anything. Chu Liyue raised his chin. Yes. Yanqing responded and immediately stepped forward to attack again. Don't Lu Ruhai didn't even have the chance to struggle and defend himself before he was sent flying by Yanqing's kick. He slammed into the wall. Yanqing quickly followed up and hit the most vulnerable and painful part of his body. Not long after, Lu Ruhai's initial resistance gradually turned into begging for mercy. In the end, all that was left was a powerless moan of pain. A ninth-grade pinnacle celestial physician was indeed of high status and could attract the admiration and pursuit of many experts. Unfortunately, he could only lie powerlessly on the ground, struggling at death's door. Lu Ruhai's ears were buzzing, her mind was blank, and her whole body was almost numb from the pain. Only now did he realize that this young woman, who was always smiling in front of him, really had the intention to kill. I said. Lu Ruhai spat out a few words with difficulty. Chu Liyue raised her hand. Only then did Yanqing stop. Say it. Lu Ruhai opened his mouth, which was full of blood. Yes, she is. Son. Puff. Before Lu Ruhai could finish his sentence, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes rolled back, and his body convulsed violently. Then he fell to the ground motionless. Chu Luiyue frowned. Yin Qing was about to attack when she stopped her. Don't touch him. Yin Qing was stunned. Then she saw Lu Ruhai's body rapidly shriveling and rotting. In the end, it only turned into a pool of blood. It seems that he is also from that side. Chu Luiyue muttered. He and Lu Yue worked together not necessarily because of Lu Yue's orders. It could also be that they have the same master. I'll have to trouble Master Lin to investigate this matter after we go back. Lin Tianfeng nodded with a complicated expression. The other party's methods are so powerful. I'm afraid. Lu Yue's side has long been prepared. It doesn't matter. Chu Luiyue stood up. The truth will come out one day. It's getting late. I'll leave first. As for Lu Ruhai, we will clean it up. Princess, don't worry. Lin Qifei said warmly. From the beginning to the end, he was much calmer and more composed than Lin Tianfeng. This made Chu Luiyue even more satisfied. She nodded and left with Yin Qing. When Chu Luiyue returned to the sacrificial god temple, it was already night. As soon as she entered the room, she saw a familiar figure. It was Rong Xiao. He was lying on the bed, holding a book in his hand. Hearing the movement, he looked up. Before he opened his mouth, a light and bitter medicinal fragrance came to the tip of his nose. He narrowed his eyes, then put the book down and coughed. Chu Luiyue glanced at him. Your Highness, you've always been in good health. Why are you coughing? Rong Xiao's face turned pale. It's probably because I didn't sleep last night that I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. Chu Luiyue remembered that last night she said she fell asleep in a daze. In her impression, she was indeed being held by someone. He didn't sleep last night. During the day, his face did seem a little haggard. Chu Luiyue walked over to take his pulse. Your Highness's body is weak. If you're not sick. Chu Luiyue raised her eyes slightly and gave him a warning look. Your Highness can lie to me once, but there won't be a second time. Rong Xiao raised his eyebrows, turned his wrist and held her hand. Are you still angry with me? He was always cold, noble and charming. Even if there was a smile on his face, there seemed to be a faint layer of cold aura lingering around him. It made people unable to get close to him, as if they were afraid of offending and profaning him. It seemed that such a person could only be looked up to. But at this moment, his voice was low and mellow, with a hint of hoarseness. It was very different from his usual gentleness. Inexplicably, it was as if something was scratching her heart, making it itchy. The light at the side shone on his incomparably enchanting face. His brows were slightly knitted, and his phoenix-like eyes were focused. He looked at her deeply with gentleness, helplessness, and as if there was a trace of grievance. Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly softened. It was as if something had permeated the air. It was sour, sweet, and numb. It was rare for a man who was always tyrannical to show such an expression. That was why it was especially moving. Rong Xiao looked at her and said in a low voice, No, I haven't had a good sleep in a long time. Miraculously, Chu Luiyue guessed his unspoken words immediately. Her eyes moved slightly, and she bent down slightly, moving closer to Rong Xiao. The two of them could almost hear each other's breaths. With a hint of a smile, she asked, Why? Then does your Highness want to sleep with me? Rong Xiao held her hand tightly. You agree? Chu Luiyue seemed to be a little distressed and frowned. But we haven't gotten married yet. This doesn't seem very good, right? Moreover, there is only one bed here. Rong Xiao suddenly smiled. I can sleep on the ground. Chu Luiyue's expression froze. She immediately gritted her teeth and said, There is only one quilt here. Rong Xiao's long fingertips gently rubbed the side of her wrist. It's okay. I have several beds. Digression. Continue in the afternoon. 6 p.m. Wah wah wah. Chapter 11:01. Chu Luiyue truly did not know whether to praise the Holy Sun for his foresight, strategizing, and resourcefulness. He had actually prepared such a thing in advance. But seeing that a certain someone seemed to be aware of this, Chu Luyue still very cooperatively invited him to sleep on the floor. Originally, she did not want to let Rong Xiu stay, but considering that there were still many soldiers guarding outside, it was really inappropriate to chase him out like this. In the end, Chu Luyue chose to settle for the next best thing. The Holy Sun was very satisfied with this result. Some things were quite good to get used to in advance. In the end, the two peacefully began the night of not sharing a bed. Chu Luyue was on the bed, and Rong Xiu was on the floor. She had a trace of hesitation at first, but when she saw Rong Xiu very calmly and politely take out 2 blankets, neatly make one bed, and even leave one for the other, Chu Luyue felt that her hesitation was really unnecessary. Then she simply closed her eyes, intending to sleep. Dusk fell, and the lights in the room went out one by one. The surroundings darkened. Rong Xiu seemed to have already laid down, and was not far from her. Actually, this bedchamber was very large, and there was a lot of space to sleep on the floor. But Rong Xiu still tried his best to fight for this last bit of compromise for himself. According to him, it was already pitiful enough that they were forced to sleep separately right after taking a consort. If they were too far apart, he would still not be able to sleep well. And so, Chu Luyue had him sleep on the floor next to the bed, and at the same time, set up a barrier. It was quiet. Chu Luyue lay on the bed, but she could not fall asleep no matter how hard she tried. After a long while she finally opened her eyes. Moonlight spilled in through the window, as cool as water, casting faint shadows on the floor. Chu Luyue turned her head and looked at Rong Xiu, who was sleeping not far away. From here, she could clearly see Rong Xiu's sleeping face. He rested his head on his arm, one of his long legs curled up. Even though the surrounding light was dim, the moonlight still clearly outlined the perfect lines of his face. The inexplicable anxiety and uneasiness in Chu Luyue's heart suddenly dissipated. It was as if as long as this person was by his side, all problems would be easily solved. She blinked and tilted her body slightly to take a closer look. Even though he was sleeping, he was still as handsome as ever. It would be fine if he didn't open his eyes. Once it opened, it would suck in one's soul. It was as if it could pull one into a bottomless abyss, causing one to sink into oblivion. Suddenly, his brows furrowed as if he was having a nightmare. Then his frown deepened. A faint layer of cold air covered his entire body. Chu Luyue was shocked. Soon, she saw that there was a layer of frost on the ground. Under the reflection of the moonlight, it flashed with a bone-chilling light. Rong Xiu. Chu Luyue called out to him. But Rong Xiu only curled up his body slightly. That thin layer of blanket covering his body seemed insignificant at this moment. Chu Luyue sat up. Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu's face was buried in the shadows and couldn't be seen clearly. Chu Luyue pursed her lips, dispersed the barrier and walked over. Rong Xiu, if you continue to pretend, I'm going to get angry. As Chu Luyue spoke, she finally saw Rong Xiu's face clearly. When she saw that his thick eyelashes were also covered with a layer of frost, she finally realized that something was wrong. She quickly bent down and touched his face. It was cold to the touch. It was so cold that Chu Luyue felt cold all over. Rong Xiu seemed to feel something. He grabbed her hand and pulled her into his embrace. His movements were rough and wild, completely different from his usual gentleness and restraint. Chu Luyue tried her best not to scream out loud as she released the force from her body and followed his strength to fall into his arms. Rong Xiu's iron arms wrapped around Chu Luyue, and his long legs pressed down. He easily trapped her tightly in his embrace. Chu Luyue's chest tightened. When she finally struggled out of his embrace and raised her head, she saw that his brows were slowly relaxing. Then, under Chu Luyue's gaze, the frost on his eyelashes gradually melted. His originally cold skin gradually warmed up and returned to its normal temperature. Chu Luyue didn't notice that the frost on the ground beside them was also disappearing bit by bit at this time. Rong Xiu's eyelashes moved. Just when Chu Luyue thought that he was going to wake up, Rong Xiu changed to a more comfortable position and hugged her. His breathing gradually became long and deep. Chu Luyue was confused. Is he asleep? The series of actions made Chu Luiyue suspect that he did it on purpose. However, seeing that he seemed to have really fallen asleep, Chu Luiyue couldn't bear to wake him up. Perhaps he really hasn't slept well during this period of time? Chu Luiyue looked at him for a while, raised her head slightly, leaned over, and gently tapped his lips. Then, she snuggled back into his arms and closed her eyes to sleep. For some reason, she fell into a deep sleep very quickly this time. After a long time, when she was completely asleep, the man in the dark slowly opened his eyes. He looked at her with a deep gaze. Although this consumed a little of his force, but it was very wise to let them prepare a double quilt in advance. The next day, Chu Luiyue woke up on the bed. Rong Xiu had already gone out. She subconsciously glanced at the ground. Yes, it's clean and tidy. The quilt has been carefully kept away by the holy sun. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes. Rong Xiu's body. I'll have to ask again if there's really something wrong with it. However, before she could ask, Dugu Mabao arrived. You're awake. If you're awake, get up and play chess. Chu Luiyue's head hurt. However, when she thought of Rong Xiu, she gritted her teeth, quickly washed up, and invited Dugu Mabao in. Let's begin. For the next few days, Chu Luiyue's life was the same every day. Every day, she would play chess with Dugu Mabao, then go to the training field to fight with the puppets for 4 hours. After that, she would spend some time to reflect and improve her cultivation. In between, she would also help Lin Qifei treat his illness and refine medicine. Usually, she could only see Rong Xiu at night. Chu Luiyue could feel that Rong Xiu was very busy. However, he didn't say what he was busy with, and Chu Luiyue didn't take the initiative to ask. It was just that he often couldn't sleep well at night. Chu Luiyue couldn't stand it anymore, and would end up sleeping on the floor with him every time. Of course, she would always return to bed the next morning. The 5 days set by Dugu Mabao passed quickly. The puppets that Chu Luiyue fought with had really changed to mid-level level 8. Moreover, the time she spent every day on this had also increased to 6 hours. The results of the high-intensity training were also very obvious. Chu Luiyue's close combat strength had improved a lot compared to before. In addition, although she hadn't been able to quickly break through in martial artist cultivation, however, Chu Luiyue had broken through to the peak of level 8 as a mystic master. The distance to level 9 was within reach. Chapter 1102. And in these few days, Lin Qifei's body had more or less recovered. As long as Chu Luiyue went one last time, and let him use the last medicine, she could leave in peace. As for those people in Cold Mountain Valley, Chu Luiyue didn't put too much thought into it, because she hadn't mentioned this matter to Rong Xiu yet. Rong Xiu had already let Yin Qing deal with those people herself. When they were finally able to leave, Chu Luiyue had coincidentally met them once. Han Quan had one leg and one arm crippled, and the remaining few people were more or less crippled, and they were the kind that was hard to recover from. After this, these people were basically crippled. In the future, not to mention improving, it was already extremely difficult for them to maintain their current realm. Under the Yuntian Tower, there were a total of 28 tribes. Previously, Rong Xiu had personally destroyed the unparalleled palace, and now even if he destroyed another Cold Mountain Valley, no one would care. Therefore, the people of Cold Mountain Valley didn't even dare to have resentment in their hearts, and could only flee with their tails between their legs. They were afraid that if they left too late, they would directly die here. The situation of Cold Mountain Valley and Lu Rahai was quickly spread. Everyone discussed in private. At this time, some people finally realized that this newly ascended princess was not as weak and easy to bully as they thought. With such thoughts and methods, coupled with that kind of talent, it might not be difficult to gain a foothold in the Yuntian Tower. Chu Luiyue allowed outsiders to speculate and comment, and ignored them all. In the Divine Ruins world, strength was respected. As long as she was strong enough, she could make these people obediently shut their mouths. Other than that, she had another very important thing to do. At noon on this day, it was rare that Rong Xiu was free, so Chu Luiyue pulled him to play chess together. After a fierce battle, Chu Luiyue was still defeated. Looking at the chessboard that collapsed in front of her, Chu Luiyue gritted her teeth. This man's talent and strength were extremely astonishing. She was afraid that it would be difficult to catch up to him in a short period of time. Chu Luiyue had no choice but to change the topic. Your Highness, there's something I forgot to ask. Do you know Jun Jiuqing? Rong Xiu paused in his actions and silently looked up at her. Then he nodded. Yes and no. Chu Luiyue frowned. How do you know each other? Logically speaking, the two of them had nothing to do with each other. And from the looks of it, Jun Jiuqing seemed to know a lot about the Yuntian Tower. With his identity as Prince Biming, he really shouldn't know about this. He has also been to the Divine Ruins world before? Or was he originally from the Divine Ruins realm? Rong Xiu pondered for a moment and smiled. He was indeed born in the Divine Ruins realm, but he was sent back to the Dark North a long time ago. But he hasn't cut off contact with this side. Chu Luiyue nodded in understanding. If that was the case, many things could be explained clearly. But why was he sent back? Countless people in the world fought to enter the Divine Ruins realm and establish a foothold here. And Jun Jiuqing was like. At that time, the family he was in was very quarrelsome. In order to save his life, the people above sent him away. And that family has a good relationship with the Dark North, so then he's not the biological son of the Dark North Emperor. Of course not. But because of his special identity, Jun Qiji has always treated him like his own son. Even in the Dark North royal family, only a handful of people know about this. But you know, Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows and smiled. If I don't know about this, then the position of the Son of Heaven wouldn't be mine. He was just teasing with a smile on his lips. But Chu Luiyue's heart tightened when she heard it. She only had a rough idea of Rong Xiu's background and could finish it in a few words. But only Rong Xiu himself knew how much hardship and sadness was contained in these simple words. He was never recognized by the family, but he became one of the top existences in the family. It was obvious how much he had gone through. So Jun Jiuqing has also returned to the Divine Ruins realm? Yes. Rong Xiu suddenly thought of something, and his expression faded. Chu Luiyue was deep in thought. Although Jun Jiuqing had not broken through to the God realm, but with such a background, it was not a big problem for him to enter and leave the Divine Ruins realm. Chu Luiyue rested her chin on one hand and muttered. But after all, he was raised outside. Could it be that his family really doesn't have any grudges? It's all because he has a good master. Rong Xiu said. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Master? His master is a student. Rong Xiu suddenly stopped halfway. Just as Chu Luiyue was about to ask again, there was a knock on the door. Your Highness, there's an urgent letter. It was Yumo's voice. Rong Xiu got up and went to open the door. Yumo respectfully handed it over and said, This is the academy. Before he could finish, Rong Xiu suddenly stopped him with a look. He glanced around and noticed that Chu Luiyue was inside. Yumo quickly fell silent. Rong Xiu did not open the letter. He just turned around and told Chu Luiyue that he had to deal with something temporarily, and then left. Chu Luiyue's eyebrows twitched slightly. Study? Academy? Did Rong Xiu want to say this just now? Chu Luiyue could not think of an answer. So he simply put this matter to the back of his mind and went to see Lin Qifei for the last time. After a few days of careful recuperation in Yuntian Tower, Lin Qifei's complexion was much better. In the past, he looked like a piece of sparkling and fragile glass. But now, he seemed to have a bit more of a human touch. Coupled with his gradually increasing strength, no one dared to underestimate him. Chu Luiyue brewed the last medicine. Lin Qifei held the medicine, paused for a moment, and drank it in one gulp. Thank you. He looked at Chu Luiyue with a serious expression. Chu Luiyue smiled and shook his head. It's nothing, but I'll have to trouble you with the teleportation formation. Lin Qifei nodded and then said, Actually, with my current strength, it might be a little difficult to complete this alone. So I'll think of a way to improve my strength first. And then, sharpening the knife won't delay the cutting of wood. Chu Liyue finished his sentence and smiled. Of course, it's no problem if you think so. But, what do you plan to do specifically? Dongtian Cliff. There shouldn't be anyone who can teach you, right? Even if there was, he might not trust them. Lin Qifei paused and said, I want to go to Lingxiao College first. Chu Liyue was stunned. What? Lingxiao College? Lin Qifei saw her reaction and thought that she did not know, so he patiently explained. Lingxiao College is the top college in the Divine Ruins world. There are many top experts there. If you can cultivate there, you will definitely benefit greatly. So, Chu Liyue suddenly thought of something and interrupted him. Rongxiu also has contact with this college, right? Chapter 1103. Of course. Lin Qifei said matter-of-factly. His Highness the Holy Sun is one of the most outstanding students in Lingxiao College. Back then, His Highness the Holy Sun was in the limelight at Lingxiao College. However, in the past 2 years, His Highness rarely went back, so he kept a low profile. However, he is still admired by many students in Lingxiao College. Chu Liyue was slightly stunned. He's a student there? But isn't he a member of Yuntian Tower? Why isn't he cultivating in the clan? Instead, Lin Qifei finally understood that Chu Liyue's focus was wrong. He smiled faintly and explained. Princess, it seems that you really don't know much about Lingxiao College. Although it is called a college, Lingxiao College is definitely qualified to be called the top college in the world of Divine Ruins. Lingxiao College has a history of more than 10,000 years. It has a long history and a deep foundation. Even many first-class families may not be able to compete with it. There are the most powerful cultivators in the continent. It is rich in resources and is extremely rare. Therefore, in addition to those itinerant cultivators, many disciples of aristocratic families also want to cultivate in Lingxiao College. On one hand, you can get systematic guidance and cultivation in Lingxiao College. On the other hand, Lingxiao College students are all over the continent, and most of them have deep feelings for Lingxiao College. If you can become a member of the college, you will undoubtedly broaden your network. No matter from which aspect, cultivating in Lingxiao College is the dream of countless cultivators in the world of Divine Ruins. Lin Qifei said and took a deep breath. There seemed to be waves in his clear eyes. It's the same for me. This was indeed an unattainable dream for Lin Qifei in the past. At that time, even going out was a problem for him. His body was always tormented, but it was different now. He already had a healthy body, so Lingxiao College did not seem so unattainable anymore. Chu Liyue could see his deep yearning and expectation for Lingxiao College, and a little curiosity arose in his heart. Lin Qifei had an indifferent personality. It was rare to see him care so much about anything. He didn't even seem to care about the position of the cliff master of the Heavenly Cave Cliff. However, when he mentioned Lingxiao College, his expression was completely different. Was that academy really that powerful? Chu Liyue couldn't help but tease him. It seems that this Lingxiao College is really good. Now that you've mentioned it, even I want to go and have a look. Lin Jifei's eyes suddenly lit up. He sat up straight and said, It's not impossible for Wang Fei to think this way. With the talent you've shown, you'll definitely be accepted. No matter what, she was really just a rank 7 warrior now. If it was really as she said, that she didn't have any sects or clans to rely on in the Divine Ruins world, then Lingxiao College was the best place to go. Chu Liyue also thought of this. She narrowed her eyes and began to seriously think about this matter. What you said makes sense. Other than being a little curious about Rongxiu, she could improve her cultivation and expand her network. It was simply the best of both worlds. Although Yuntian Tower was good, she always felt that it wasn't very free. When she thought of the few revered elders who were especially against her and Rongxiu, Chu Liyue felt a little annoyed. It seemed inconvenient for her to do anything she wanted. Here as the Wang Fei, her every word and action was always being watched. Thinking of this, Chu Liyue wanted to go to Lingxiao College even more. I'll think about this matter again, Chu Liyue said and stood up. As for you, just go if you want to. Just don't forget the agreement between us. Lin Qifei nodded solemnly. Since Wang Fei has instructed, I will do my best. After Chu Luiyue returned to her bedroom, she began to think about Lingxiao College again. Duge Mabao saw that she seemed to be a little absent-minded, so he asked casually, "What are you thinking about?" Chu Luiyue paused and asked, "Debao, have you heard of Lingxiao College?" Duge Mabao paused in his actions and looked up at her without batting an eyelid. His pair of demonic purple eyes were deep and unreadable. "I've heard of it. Why did you suddenly think of it? I'm wondering if I should go and take a look." Chu Luiyue didn't hide her intentions from Duge Mabao. "I heard that if I can go, it will be very beneficial to my cultivation." Duge Mabao was expressionless. "Do you think that I'm not good enough to teach you?" "Of course not." Chu Luiyue glanced at him. Of course, she knew what an honor it was to be taught by such a god-level expert. But after all, a college was different from a person. "I just think that going to the college has its own benefits. To be able to stand in the world of divine ruins for 10,000 years, it must be an extraordinary existence, and..." Chu Luiyue paused for a moment. "And I have a feeling that this place is a little familiar." Duge Mabao lowered his eyes. After a while he said, "Up to you." Then, as if he suddenly thought of something, he asked, "What did Rongxiu say?" Chu Luiyue waved her hand. "I don't intend to tell him about this." Duge Mabao looked up in surprise. Chu Luiyue blinked and looked normal, as if she didn't think that there was anything strange about her actions. She had a feeling that Rongxiu seemed to be deliberately hiding something from her about Lingxiao College. The more he was like this, the more she wanted to go and see for herself. Duge Mabao was silent for a while. "Many people already know that you are the princess of the Yuntian Tower, and many people have seen your face. They will know if they ask around." "You? Who said that I want to go with this face?" Chu Luiyue laughed. Duge Mabao immediately understood. "You've made up your mind?" "Yes." Chu Luiyue looked much more serious. "In addition to the reasons I told you before, there is one more thing. Jun Jiuqing seems to have a master over there. My father is still in Jun Jiuqing's hands, and I don't know where he is imprisoned. Maybe this is a way." This was actually the most decisive factor. At this point, Duge Mabao finally nodded. "But..." Chu Luiyue looked at Debao hesitantly. "Debao, you are a little too conspicuous. Why don't I find a mask for you? You don't have to worry about that." Duge Mabao closed his eyes. "I will hide my identity on the way. After arriving at the college, no one will notice anything unusual." At night, Rongxiu came back. Just as Chu Luiyue was hesitating to find an excuse, Rongxiu spoke first. I have to go out for a while. I'm afraid I can't stay with you for the time being." In fact, the other side had been urging him for a long time. He really couldn't delay it, so he said this. Chu Luiyue almost instantly guessed that it must be related to Lingxiao College. "Then I will concentrate on cultivating during this time and wait for you." Chapter 1104. Rongxiu kissed her forehead. "I've already sent people to investigate Lord Chu Ning's matter. After a while there should be some clues." Chu Luiyue was stunned, and a warm current surged in her heart. She nodded slightly. That night, Rongxiu was finally able to put away the blanket and lay on the bed. The two fell asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, Rongxiu left, leaving Yu Mo to take care of Chu Luiyue. As soon as he left, a few revered elders came to see her. Chu Luiyue asked Yu Mo to reject them all, and only told them that she was going to start her seclusion. As the princess, Chu Luiyue was now living in the sacrificial god temple. Other than the clan leader and the Holy Sun, no one else was allowed to come here. Of course, there was now Chu Luiyue. So as long as she didn't want to, these revered elders couldn't see her. So, Chu Luiyue stayed in the palace and started her seclusion, while Yuemo waited outside attentively. It would be extremely troublesome to leave the Cloud Tianke without anyone noticing, because from here, one had to go through the teleportation formation that led to the outside world. But it was different for Chu Luiyue, because she had the holy ring on her hand. So she could easily open the teleportation formation in the sacrificial god temple. In addition, she also asked Dugu Mabao to help her leave a trace of her aura, and poured it into a puppet, pretending to be her. Coupled with the barrier, as long as Umo didn't take the initiative to barge in, he wouldn't be discovered. Even if he realized that something was wrong, Chu Luiyue would have already left by then. So, Chu Luiyue quietly left the Yuntian Tower and went to Lingxiao College. Lingxiao College was very far from the Yuntian Tower. In addition, Chu Luiyue didn't dare to directly go through the Yuntian Tower's teleportation formation, so she deliberately took a few turns in the middle, which took more time. But fortunately, with Dugu Mabao, they had a smooth journey. After about 5 days, Chu Luiyue and Dugu Mabao finally arrived at Fong Prefecture. The Fong province was the closest city to the Spirit Firmament Academy. Everyone who wanted to enter Lingxiao College had to pass through here. Walking out of the teleportation formation, Chu Luiyue sighed as she looked at the city not far away, and sighed. Fong Prefecture. It's indeed worthy of its reputation. Under the bluish-purple sky, a majestic and quaint city sat on a vast plain. The grayish-white boulders were piled up, rough and imposing, and the pressure was heavy. Behind the city, there was a huge wall. Rumor had it that Lingxiao College was behind the city. Outside Lingxiao College, there's a barrier formed by divine power. Anyone who wants to enter must obtain a pass from Fong Prefecture. Dugu Mabao explained. Chu Luiyue nodded. At this time, the two of them had carefully dressed up. Chu Luiyue was wearing a long blue robe, with a white jade belt around her waist. She wore a golden crown on her head. She was tall and handsome. At first glance, she looked like a young master from a noble family. She didn't show off, but she didn't let others look down on her. As for Dugu Mabao, who was beside her, he had already transformed into the same black hair and black eyes as her. His appearance was also somewhat different from before. He had changed from a top-notch cute girl to an ordinary one. In the past, when he walked on the streets, his face could inspire the motherly love of almost all women. But now, he seemed to be very concerned about this, and deliberately disguised himself as an ordinary one. Except for the cold and indifferent look in his eyes, he was almost completely different from before. If people didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see anything unusual. Pass, Chu Luiyue murmured. Before coming, she had heard Dugu Mabao mention this matter. Lingxiao College was heavily guarded. Anyone who entered or left needed a pass. And there were only 2 ways to get this pass. First, it had to be related to the people in Lingxiao College. Second, find the teachers of Lingxiao College in Fong Prefecture, pass their assessment, and become a student of Lingxiao College. The first method was relatively simple, but it also had a disadvantage. The time inside was limited. Chu Luiyue couldn't expose her identity, so she could only choose the second method. Lingxiao College didn't accept students at a fixed time every year. As long as you were outstanding enough, you could come at any time. Therefore, in the world of divine ruins, almost every day, people came from all over to try to enter Lingxiao College. There were also some who stayed in Fong Prefecture and continued to cultivate while trying to find a way out. This was also one of the reasons why Fong Prefecture was so lively. However, in the end, there were only a few who could succeed. Let's go. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath. Dugu Mabao shook his head. After entering Fong Prefecture, I won't travel with you. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Dugu Mabao paused. Seeing her confused expression, he gave a rare explanation. There are a few acquaintances here. I'll go and meet them. After that, I'll wait for you in Lingxiao College. Chu Luiyue's eyes widened. At this moment, she suddenly realized that she seemed to have overlooked something. So in fact you can directly enter Lingxiao College. Dugu Mabao raised his eyebrows. Is that strange? His tone was too matter-of-fact, with a careless arrogance, so much so that Chu Luiyue began to doubt herself. After thinking carefully, Chu Luiyue felt that her question was meaningless. With Dugu Mabao's strength, it wasn't strange for him to be able to do this. She coughed. No, it's not strange. Don't make me wait too long. Dugu Mabao left these words, the void vibrated, and his figure flashed, instantly disappearing in front of Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue. He was so straightforward. Chu Luiyue looked around. There were no less than 10 teleportation arrays here. But fortunately, the location of this teleportation array was relatively remote, and there was no one around, so no one paid attention to this place. She calmed herself down and began to walk forward. As she walked closer, Chu Luiyue realized that Fang Prefecture was different from ordinary cities. There was no one guarding the entrance here. In fact, there was not even a door. On both sides were walls piled up with grayish-white stones, and in the middle was a huge and wide doorway. There was even a piece of broken wall beside it, as if it had been cut by someone with a sword. It looks very casual. There were many people going in and out here. To be precise, most of them were going in, and only a small number were going out. Moreover, most of the people who went in were full of excitement and anticipation. On the other hand, most of the people who went out were full of dejection and disappointment, and their eyes were full of regret. Obviously, these people were cultivators who had given up on entering Lingxiao College. Chu Luiyue stepped in. However, just as she stepped through the doorway, a strange fluctuation suddenly came from the water droplet in her body. An unusually familiar feeling welled up in her heart. Chapter 1105. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. But this wave only surged for a moment, and before Chu Luiyue could react, everything was over. If not for the fact that Chu Luiyue could still feel the force surging in her dantian, she would have thought that it was just an illusion. Hey, are you still going in? If you're not going in, then hurry up and get out of the way. Suddenly, an arrogant shout came from behind. Chu Luiyue turned around to take a look. There were 3 young people. One was a woman, and 2 were men. They looked to be in their early 20s, and all of them were dressed in luxurious clothes and had good looks. They were surrounded by a noble aura. Obviously, they were disciples from big families. The one who spoke was a tall and thin man. The woman next to him said reproachfully, "Brother Sheng, what did the patriarch say before we came out? Have you forgotten? Remember to keep a low profile when you're outside." The tall and thin man seemed to listen to her words. He scratched his head and chuckled. "Aren't I afraid of being delayed? After all, 4th brother, and the rest have been waiting for us in the academy for a long time." The woman smiled embarrassedly and said, "Actually, it's my fault. If I hadn't cultivated too slowly, and only broken through to the 9th stage now, the 2 of you wouldn't have to wait for me until now." The 2 young men shook their heads. "You're a little young, but your talent is top-notch. When you enter Lingxiao College, you'll definitely be able to quickly break through to the God realm. Become a God-level master." Chu Luiyue's heart moved slightly, and she tactfully took a step back and let them pass. They brushed past each other. The woman nodded slightly at Chu Luiyue to express her apology. Chu Luiyue suddenly shouted, "Please wait a moment." The woman had already turned around and walked forward, but when she heard this, she turned back to look at her. "Young master, is there anything else?" Chu Luiyue smiled and cupped her hands. "I have something to ask you guys." Although her current face wasn't considered devilish, it could still be considered delicate and pretty. Coupled with that pair of clear eyes, it was easy for people to have a good impression of her. With such a faint smile, her eyes were slightly curved and bright, and it seemed to automatically attract people's attention. For some reason, the woman's face heated up slightly. "Please speak, young master," Chu Luiyue asked with a smile. "Does Lingxiao College recruit students who are at least ranked 9 warriors?" As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Luiyue saw the expressions of the people opposite him become strange. They looked at her as if they were looking at something strange. "Where did you come from? You don't even know this?" The young man who had scolded them at the beginning couldn't help but open his mouth. He originally wanted to say a few more words, but the woman next to him glared at him. "Strictly speaking, that's not the case," the woman explained in a warm voice. "Generally speaking, only cultivators who reach the 9th rank before the age of 25 are qualified to enter Lingxiao College. However, if one's talent was especially outstanding, it was not impossible to make an exception. The final result would depend on the teachers and elders of the academy. Chu Luiyue was silent for a moment. Then, Mystic Master and Celestial Physician also have the same requirements? The woman couldn't help but laugh. Of course not. These two require one to reach the 8th rank before the age of 25. Chu Luiyue heaved a sigh of relief. Thank you, Mississippi. The woman smiled and nodded. She didn't take the initiative to mention her name, nor did she ask Chu Luiyue. Soon, she left with the two young men beside her. In Fang Province, countless people tried to enter Lingxiao College every day, but not many could do it. It would be too tiring and unnecessary if they had to tell each other their identities when they saw each other. Chu Luiyue didn't mind too much. After seeing them leave, he pondered for a moment and also walked in. This time his dantian was calm. Almost as soon as Chu Luiyue entered the city, in a remote courtyard somewhere in the city, an old man with white hair bounced up from his bed with a bang. He looked around in panic, as if he was afraid of something. Then he hurriedly rushed outside. At this moment, there was a long line outside the courtyard. Most of the people standing there were young men and women. Their faces were filled with unconcealable excitement and anticipation. From time to time, they would look at the white-robed old man, sitting on a chair at the front. There was a table in front of him, and there were 3 booklets on the table. In front of each booklet, there were crystals of different colors. At this moment, a young man had placed his hand on the white crystal in the middle, and was concentrating on infusing his force into it. His face was flushed red. It was obvious that he was using all his strength. The people behind him didn't make a sound. It was obvious that they were also nervous. They were nervous because the test at this moment was Lingxiao College's exam. As for the old man sitting behind him, he was one of the teachers of the Spirit Firmament Academy, in charge of Fangzhou City, Elder Wenxi. It was quiet all around. Elder Wenxi half closed his eyes, and looked like he was about to fall asleep at any time. After a moment, a line of words appeared on the white crystal. 23 years old, peak of the 8th rank. Elder Wenxi glanced at it and closed his eyes again. Eliminated. Next. The young man's face turned from red to pale. However, at this moment, Elder Wenxi suddenly opened his eyes again. He suddenly stood up. He looked in the direction of the city gate in horror. At the same time, another old man rushed out of the courtyard. The two of them looked at each other, and saw the expression on each other's face. Elder Wenxi's eyes twitched fiercely and said in a trembling voice, That scourge is here again? Digression. Cervical vertebra hurts, I can't straighten my neck. Rest for a while, continue at 6 o'clock. Chapter 1106. Elder Huafeng hurriedly said, I'll find a place to hide first. I'll leave this place to you. After saying that, he turned around and was about to run away. Stop right there. Elder Wenxi pulled him back and gritted his teeth. If you leave just like that, what should I do? Who told you to be on duty today? Elder Huafeng retorted straightforwardly, and looked at the sky. Look, there's still an hour before the shift change. Of course, I have to leave it to you. Let's not talk about it for now. I'm leaving first. After saying that, Elder Huafeng quickly broke free from Elder Wenxi's hands, and found a direction to escape. Elder Wenxi gritted his teeth in anger. He moved his feet and chased after him, shouting, You old fart! Why are you so afraid of her? F***CK. If you're not afraid, why are you chasing me? Elder Huafeng retorted. Elder Wenxi was speechless, and felt a dull pain in his chest. Suddenly his expression changed slightly. That's not right. That scourge hasn't come back for a few years. Why would she suddenly appear at this time? Elder Huafeng was also stunned. Then he raised his head and looked around. It really doesn't seem right. It's been so long, why hasn't she found us yet? According to the previous rules, she should have appeared by now. The two of them looked at each other, and exchanged a hidden look. Could it be that I'm wrong? That aura. It's not her? Elder Wenxi frowned and said, Impossible. Elder Huafeng immediately denied it. It must be her. It's definitely her. In this world, Only the arrival of that person could startle him awake from his dreams. It couldn't be helped. After years of training, it had become instinct. Many cultivators who were still waiting in line for the test looked at what the two of them were talking about from afar. They were all confused. What's going on? Who are these two elders talking about? Both of them were elders of the Spirit Firmament Academy in the Fong province. Who else could cause them to have such a reaction? No one dared to ask any questions, and could only wait quietly, being stared at by these people with strange gazes. Elder Wensi and Elder Huafeng finally realized that they had lost their composure just now. Cough. Elder Wensi coughed forcefully, and gave Elder Huafeng a meaningful look before lowering his voice. What are you doing? And in front of so many children, how embarrassing. Elder Huafeng looked conflicted. What's wrong with losing face? Losing your life is the scary part. Elder Wensi was speechless. He let out a long sigh, and finally regained a bit of his rationality. If she really comes back, what's the use of hiding? Let's just stay here. What can she do to us? Elder Huafeng looked at him suspiciously and resentfully. Elder Wensi rubbed his nose guiltily. Give me some face. If you run away now, won't you have to come back in an hour to take your turn? There's no point in hiding. That scourge is more familiar with Fong province than we are. Where could he hide? Why don't we just wait and do what we need to do? Elder Huafeng's heart was filled with anxiety. After his persuasion, he finally wavered a little. You're not allowed to run away when she comes. I know. For safety's sake, the two of them discussed moving together to avoid being alone. Thus, the two of them sat behind the table. Ahem, continue. Elder Wensi mustered up his courage and shouted. However, he did not dare to shout too loudly. He was afraid of attracting trouble. Although the young boys and girls were at a loss, when they heard this, they still obediently went forward and took the test one by one. However, the two elders in charge of the test were obviously a little absent-minded. From time to time, they would look around as if they were looking for someone or waiting for someone. However, the expression on their faces was not one of joy or anticipation. Time passed bit by bit. The two of them gradually relaxed. Perhaps she's really fine? Otherwise, it would be strange if she didn't show up for so long. Elder Wensi was comforted. Perhaps she went to find someone else? Strange, what day is it today? There are actually two elders overseeing the test together? Seeing the long line, Luo Shirshi's beautiful eyes widened slightly as a trace of surprise flashed across her face. Perhaps they knew that we were coming today. Zhuoxing chuckled. The news of our arrival has always been very confidential. Besides, what kind of figures are the two elders? We are just juniors. Why would they bother to make such a big fuss? Luo Shirshir shook her head and retorted. Perhaps the two elders have other arrangements, but that's not something we can ask. Let's go over as soon as possible. Luo Yinming said with a smile. As they spoke, they stepped forward and lined up at the end of the line. Chu Luyue saw them from afar, but she did not follow them. From where she was, she could not see the two elders inside, but from the long line and the whispers of the people around her, she could guess that that should be the place where Lingxiao College's test was taking place. That should be the only place to get a pass. However, Chu Luyue was not in a hurry to go over. After confirming the location, she began to leisurely stroll around the city. Every street here was very spacious and flat, and it was very lively. Walking on the streets, she could clearly feel that the auras of these people were very powerful. Although she could not tell what level they were at, she could tell a thing or two from the admission criteria of Lingxiao College. A level 9 martial artist before the age of 25 was definitely considered a top genius. But here they were only at the entry level. Chu Luyue deeply understood what Dugu Mabao had said earlier. Here the current her was indeed too weak. In fact, Chu Luyue's breakthrough speed was already very fast. After all, she had been reborn as a good-for-nothing with a damaged Yuan meridian in her teens. Her real cultivation time had only been these 2 years. If not for those opportunities and treasures, it would have been very difficult for her to reach her current level. However, in a world where the strong were respected, Only the results were important. No one cared about the process. Chu Luiyue walked casually on the streets. Fang State City was very big and prosperous. Because Lingxiao College was behind it, most of the people who came here were very well behaved. Other than that, there were many vendors who bought and sold everything. Pills, yuan tools, medicinal herbs, xian formations. Almost everything related to cultivation had an extremely standardized and huge market here. Chu Luiyue wanted to pick some things, but she realized that there was nothing that caught her eye. Thus, after walking for a while, Chu Luiyue returned to the place where Luo Shishir and the others had gone before. At this moment, the long line was much shorter. It was almost Luo Shishir's turn. Chu Luiyue walked over and stood at the end of the line with a few people in between. Elder Huafeng suddenly shivered and looked in Chu Luiyue's direction vigilantly. Chapter 1107. Chu Luiyue seemed to have sensed something and looked up. When she realized that it was an old man sitting there looking at her, Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment before smiling slightly. Her current appearance was very delicate and tall. With this smile, she exuded the temperament of a pure and harmless noble young master. In addition, her respectful and polite expression made her even more likable. Seeing that it was not the face in his memory, Elder Huafeng subconsciously heaved a sigh of relief. But for some reason, he felt that this young man looked somewhat familiar. Elder Wenxi, who was beside him, also followed his line of sight, but the figure in front of them blocked their view, so neither of them could see too clearly. Chu Luiyue had already lowered her eyes. At this moment, it was Zhuosheng's turn to take the test. Greetings, elders. Junior Zhuosheng would like to take the warrior test. Elder Wenxi retracted his gaze and looked at the young man in front of him. His eyes lit up and he raised his chin. Just follow the instructions. Yes. Zhuosheng tried his best to hide his nervousness and anticipation as he placed his hand on the white crystal in front of him. A moment later, a line of words slowly appeared. 23 years old, early stage of the 9th stage. The surrounding crowd fell silent for a moment. This had reached the admission standards of Lingxiao College. Moreover, he could already be considered one of the more outstanding ones. One had to know that the earlier one broke through to the 9th stage, the more resources they would receive after entering the academy, the better the treatment. Sure enough, Elder Wenxi revealed a smile on his face. Not bad. As he said that, he flipped his palm and took out a black jade token. This jade token was pitch black and engraved with golden patterns. That was the symbol of Lingxiao College. It was also their totem. Inject a strand of your force into it and activate the pass. You will officially become a student of the academy, Elder Wenxi said with a smile. Every day in Fangzhou, there were many people who tried to enter the Spirit Firmament Academy, but those who succeeded were few and far between. Sometimes, there might not even be one in a month. He thought that he wouldn't gain anything today, but he didn't expect that he would become one when it was almost over. And there might be more than one. The two people who traveled with Zhuosheng seemed to be very good. Zhuosheng carefully injected a strand of his force. On the black jade token, the academy's totem suddenly flashed. Then the words Zhuosheng appeared below. Good. From today onwards, you are a student of the academy. Elder Wenxi laughed out loud. As soon as he said that, everyone around him, Zhuosheng looked at the black jade token in his hand and was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. Although he had already expected this result before he came, he still couldn't hide his excitement when it really came true. Go and wait at the side first. When it's over, come back with this old man, Elder Wenxi said with a smile. Next, this time it was Luo. Greetings to the two elders. Junior Luo Yanming wants to take the Mystic Master test. Elder Huafeng suddenly interjected. Luo Yanming smiled. That's why I said you guys look a little similar. That kid is very outstanding. I'm sure the few of you should be the same, right? Quick, test it. Luo Yanming replied, and placed her hand on the black crystal beside her. Soon, a line of words slowly appeared on it. 23 years old, level 9 Xian master. Cries of surprise could be heard from the crowd. He was only 23 years old, but he was already a level 9 Xian master? He was truly an extremely outstanding genius. Haha, this old man's judgment can't be wrong. Elder Huafeng smiled proudly at Elder Wenxi. This kid is the same as his brother. He has outstanding talent in this area. The reason why he was happy was because he was a Xian master, and Elder Wenxi was a martial artist. They were both 23 years old, but a level 9 Xian master was stronger than a stage 9 martial artist. Elder Wenxi didn't argue with him about this and chuckled. In any case, they all came in during his shift, so this result would be credited to him. And that little girl you come. Facing Luo Shishir, Elder Wenxi and Elder Huafeng's attitude was much more amiable. Luo Shishir stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Greetings to the two elders. Junior Luo Shishir wants to test as a martial artist. Elder Wenxi chuckled. Feel free to test it. Luo Shishir pursed her lips and smiled as she placed her hand on the white crystal. A moment later, words appeared. 20 years old, stage 9 martial artist. The crowd instantly quieted down. The expressions of the two elders also changed slightly. Surprise appeared in their eyes. A 20-year-old stage 9 martial artist. In the academy, he could be considered to be one of the top students. Elder Wenxi was very happy. Today was simply too surprising. Other people might not be able to wait for a month for a qualified one. But today, 3 of them came at once. He even felt that his heart, which had been hurt by suspecting the appearance of that scourge, had been comforted. The Luo family is indeed a gathering of geniuses. The younger generation is actually so outstanding. Luo Shishir blushed slightly. Elders, you flatter me. She took her black jade token and felt the slightly cold touch. Only then did she feel a little more at ease. According to your talent, you could have come a long time ago. Why did you take so long? Elder Wenxi asked curiously. Luo Shishir said with some embarrassment. Actually, the two brothers could have come a long time ago, but they waited for me so. She insisted on waiting until she broke through to become a stage 9 martial artist. After all, Lingxiao College was the top college in the Divine Ruins world. She wanted to perform as well as possible, so she waited until now. Elder Wenxi and Elder Huafeng laughed, but they didn't ask in detail. It's a good thing that you have a good relationship. When you reach the college, let Luo Yanlin take you around. The scene was lively and joyous. When the onlookers saw this, they were all envious. After that, more than a dozen people were tested, but no one passed. However, the two elders were already very happy, especially Elder Wenxi. These 3 people were all on his side. Next, Chu Luwe stepped forward. She was the last one. Greetings to the two elders. Chu Luwe bowed politely. Her words and actions were all like that of a young master from an aristocratic family. It was pleasing to the eye. This also made many people who were about to leave stop in their tracks, wanting to take a look. Only then did Elder Wenxi and Elder Huafeng carefully size up the youth in front of them. They couldn't tell his background, but this aura was indeed rare. Junior Chu Yu wants to take the Celestial Physician test. To be safe, Chu Luiwe still chose the Celestial Physician test. However, as soon as she finished speaking, the two elders opposite her were stunned, as if they had heard something stimulating. Elder Huafeng stared at her. Chu Yu? Which you? Chu Luiwe was stunned for a moment. She said almost subconsciously, Wu Yu. The two elders heaved a sigh of relief. That's good, that's good. Chapter 1108. Looking at the two elders' relieved expressions, Chu Luiwe had a very strange feeling in her heart. Although she didn't know which Yu the other party was asking this question for, she inexplicably felt that it was her Yu. However, she didn't show it on her face and pretended not to notice anything. I wonder if this junior can take the test now. Take the test, take the test. Elder Huafeng heaved a sigh of relief. Chu Luiwe nodded slightly and placed her hand on the red crystal on the other side. The people beside him were discussing something in low voices. He doesn't look old. Could it be that he has already met the admission criteria? His appearance and bearing are not bad. He should be from a good background, right? Maybe he's a descendant of some family. Maybe he's just here to have fun. Chu Luiyue held her breath and focused. Soon, a line of words appeared on the red crystal. 16 years old, 8th grade celestial physician. The crowd suddenly fell silent. Elder Wensi suddenly stood up. Elder Huafeng was stunned for a moment and didn't notice that he was almost knocked to the ground. If it was any other time, he would definitely catch Elder Wensi and beat him up. But now, he couldn't care less about this. You're only 16 years old? You're an 8th grade celestial physician? The two elders exclaimed in shock. It was no wonder that the two of them reacted like this. It was because this matter was too shocking. In the Divine Ruins world, 8th grade celestial physician was not considered rare, especially in Lingxiao College where there were many talents. Who knew how many top geniuses in the world gathered here? Those who were able to serve as elders here were naturally rare powerhouses. After being in Lingxiao College for so many years, what kind of monsters had they not seen? However, this kid in front of them still shocked them. The main reason was that 16 years old was too young to be able to become an 8th grade celestial physician at this age. Even in Lingxiao College where talents gathered, was definitely an existence that was as rare as a phoenix feather or a qilin horn. Chu Luiyue coughed. She had forgotten that she was indeed only 16 years old. I wonder, did I pass? Chu Luiyue asked. Forget it. Of course. Elder Wensi shouted out reflexively. If this didn't count, then those that he had accepted before were even less qualified. The two elders stared at the young man in front of them, feeling both happy and vexed. What made him happy was that he had met another rare genius. Unfortunately, this genius specialized in celestial physician. One of them was a martial artist, while the other was a mystic cultivator. So there was nothing they could do to teach this child. Seeing the faint smile on Chu Luiyue's face, Elder Wensi suddenly came back to his senses and quickly took out a black jade token and handed it to her. Here, this is your pass, and also your identity item in the academy. You must take good care of it. Thank you, Elder. Chu Luiyue took it with both hands and smiled humbly and politely. Every word and action of his was flawless. She held the black jade token in her hand and injected a strand of her origin power into it. The academy's totem lit up with a faint fluorescent light. Chu Luiyue's name appeared below. Chuyu. She looked at the black jade token in her hand with a complicated mood. Lingxiao College seemed to be an unattainable place before, but now, she had actually become a member of it. The surrounding people watched with envy. Elder Wensi looked at the sky and chuckled at Elder Huafeng. These 4 little fellows are all on my head. Elder Huafeng pursed his lips. Lucky bastard. Elder Wensi didn't care about his teasing. This time, he could show off when he returned to the academy. Yesterday, I was still envious of that old thing Liang Xia for taking in an outstanding mystic cultivator. She's very good at teleportation arrays at such a young age. I didn't expect my luck to be even better today. Chu Luiyue's ears twitched slightly. That person, it should be Lin Qifei. Because she deliberately took a detour on the way, she was a step late. However, this was also good. Chu Luiyue didn't tell Lin Qifei that she was coming too. As for after that, she would temporarily act as Chu Yu in the academy. The fewer people who knew about some things, the safer they would be. Elder Huafeng snorted coldly. Go ahead and be happy. Be careful of that calamity. Halfway through his sentence, Elder Huafeng realized that there were still many people watching and hurriedly kept quiet. However, these words were obviously very useful to Elder Wensi. The smug look on his face immediately disappeared, and he looked around vigilantly. If Elder Huafeng hadn't mentioned it, he would have almost forgotten about it. Cough, time's up. Huafeng, it's your turn to be on duty. I'll bring these little fellows back to the academy first. Elder Huafeng almost jumped up. You're leaving? What did you say just now? Didn't we agree to go together? If he left now, would he be able to resist that calamity alone? Elder Wensi stroked his beard. Aya, there's nothing I can do about it. Look at the kids, they're all waiting. I have to send them back as soon as possible. Hold on for a while longer. Anyway, someone will come to take over in a few hours. Elder Huafeng gritted his teeth in anger. What a nice way to put it. Normally, it wouldn't be a problem for him to guard this place alone for 10 days to half a month. But how could it be the same now? As soon as he thought of that scourge waiting for an opportunity in some corner, he felt unwell. You go back and call someone over immediately. Elder Huafeng thought about it and made a concession. Elder Wensi immediately agreed. Chu Liyue's gaze swept across the two elders, and a trace of doubt appeared in his heart. Strange, why did it feel like they were afraid of something? This was Feng Zhou. If they walked forward and crossed the huge silver barrier, they would arrive at Lingxiao College. It was not an exaggeration to say that this was their territory. What exactly was it that made them so vigilant and worried? Luo Shishir and the others also vaguely sensed something, but they were not as sharp as Chu Liyue. They only thought that the two elders had other arrangements, so they did not pay much attention to it. On the other hand, Chu Liyue made them more interested. From time to time, they would look in Chu Liyue's direction. Chu Liyue nodded slightly at the few of them, and took the initiative to greet them. I'm Chu Yu. Please guide me in the future. This gentle and polite attitude made Luo Shishir and the others lower their guard against him, and have a good impression of him. I couldn't tell that you had some ability. Zhuosheng crossed his arms, and the expression on his face was a little awkward. In detail, the other party's talent was obviously much better than his. And when he entered the city gate earlier, he still treated him with that kind of attitude. It was rare for Zhuosheng to feel a little embarrassed. However, a man's pride and competitiveness did not allow him to lower his head and apologize, so he could only speak awkwardly. Chu Liyue did not seem to care much and chuckled. Thank you for the compliment. Chapter 1109. Zhuosheng's previous attitude couldn't be considered polite, but he didn't have any bad intentions. To be able to take the initiative to admit that she was outstanding, she was actually stronger than many people. Because there were actually many people who couldn't even admit that others were outstanding. But at the same time, Chu Liyue also clearly understood that the strong were respected. In this place, this was indeed the only law. Even Lingxiao College was no exception, seeing Chu Liyue smiling so happily, as if he didn't take the previous small conflict to heart. The last bit of discomfort in Zhuosheng's heart completely dissipated. He laughed. Straightforward. You're the youngest among us, so call me big brother and let me hear you. Slap. Elder Wensi mercilessly slapped the back of Zhuosheng's head. You all entered the academy on the same day, so you are of the same generation. Zhuosheng let out an ouch. Luo Shishir and the others laughed. All of you follow me. Elder Wensi waved his hand and left with the others. Elder Huafeng shouted sadly from behind. Don't forget what you promised just now. Elder Wensi sped up his leaving speed silently. The group soon arrived in front of the huge barrier. Looking at the barrier that was flickering with a faint light, Luo Shishir and the others couldn't hide their excitement. Elder Wensi said, Later, as long as you hold the black jade token in your hand and place it on the barrier, you can open it and enter smoothly. As he spoke, Elder Wensi pointed at Luo Yanming, who looked the most stable among them. Luo Yanming, you go first. Yes. Luo Yanming took a deep breath and walked forward. Standing close to it, he could clearly feel the indescribable pressure. It made people involuntarily feel awe. His expression became much more serious. He immediately raised his hand and carefully placed the black jade token on the barrier. Buzz! A slight sound came from the barrier, and at the same time, the black jade token lit up. In the next moment, the barrier fluctuated and slowly split open an entrance from the middle. Luo Yanming's eyes lit up, and he immediately jumped in. The moment his figure disappeared, the enchantment immediately closed. The defensive power of the Academy's barrier is extremely strong, and can only be opened with a pass. When you use the pass to enter the Academy, correspondingly, there will be a record of your passage on the barrier. Elder Wensi explained. Record? Luo Shishir asked curiously. Yes. After the enchantment recorded all this information, it would automatically collect and organize it. However, under normal circumstances, the only one who can see these is the president. This was actually a manifestation of a strict guard. Luo Shishir and Zhuosheng nodded thoughtfully, their faces full of amazement. I see. Lingxiao College was indeed worthy of its reputation. However, Chu Luiyue was slightly taken aback when he heard this. If that was the case, everyone who entered or left Lingxiao College would leave traces behind. Then what about Dugama Bao? He had said that he would wait for her in the academy. He should be inside now, right? He had no idea how he got in. However, judging from the current situation, everything was still very calm. Next, Zhuosheng. Zhuosheng looked excited and quickly went forward. He followed Luo Yinming's previous method and placed the black jade token on it. The same scene happened again. He quickly flashed into the barrier. Elder Wenxi smiled and waved at Luo Shishir. Luo Shishir also entered very smoothly. Finally, it was Chu Liyue's turn. Come kid, it's your turn. Elder Wenxi shouted. Like the previous few people, Chu Liyue walked forward. At this moment, she was only one step away from the barrier. She took out the black jade token. However, at this moment, an image suddenly flashed through her mind. In the image, there seemed to be a person standing in front of the barrier. That person's figure was very blurry and could not be seen clearly. However, this did not affect Chu Liyue from seeing the fair and beautiful hands. Her fingertips danced, and several streams of light flew out and intertwined in midair. Soon, a small Xian formation was formed. Although the Xian formation was not big, it was very complicated. Countless lines of starlight intertwined, and it was almost dazzling. Then, that person pushed the small Xian formation forward. The Xian formation lightly attached to the barrier. Buzz! A slight sound came from the barrier. Then several lines lit up on it. That was the Xian formation buried in the barrier. At this moment it was directly summoned. The two Xian formations, one big and one small, were attached to each other, and seemed to have some kind of mysterious connection. Then, a hand lightly tapped on the small Xian formation. The Xian formation shattered. At the same time, the big Xian formation also shattered. Above the enchantment, a hole was silently broken in an instant. When the hole was big enough to allow a person to pass through, that blurry figure instantly flashed into it. The speed was so fast that Chu Liyue could not see it clearly. However, after the figure disappeared, she could clearly see that the hole in the barrier had quietly returned to its original state. It was exactly the same as before. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed that the barrier could be opened so easily. Just as Chu Liyue was exclaiming in her heart, a furious reprimand suddenly sounded in her mind. You secretly opened the barrier again? Go back and reflect on your mistakes. Then the scene disappeared. Chu Liyue's expression became a little strange. What's wrong? Elder Wenxi noticed her abnormality and could not help but ask. Nothing. Chu Liyue came back to her senses, shook her head, and took out the black jade token. Then, she paused slightly and looked at Elder Wenxi beside her and asked. Elder Wenxi, Elder Huafeng, is he usually in charge of guarding the barrier? Elder Wenxi was stunned for a moment and looked at her strangely. Why did you think of asking this? Chu Liyue smiled slightly. This barrier has the power of a Xian formation. I heard that Elder Huafeng is a Xian master. So, the barrier of the academy is usually guarded by several elders. Each person is in charge of a different area. Huafeng did do this in the past, but later on he refused to do it. Elder Wenxi shrugged with a subtle expression on his face. He said it was too tiring. Chu Liyue. Guarding the barrier doesn't seem to be tiring for a Xian master powerhouse. Chu Liyue recalled the irritable shout that flashed through her mind just now. Looks like it's Elder Huafeng. I just don't know who he's shouting at. To be able to open the barrier without using the black jade token, and only using the Xian formation that he built. It seems that he really has some ability. Chu Liyue put away her thoughts, and recalled that when she entered the city previously, there were fluctuations in her dantian, and her eyes flashed. She raised 120% of her spirit, suppressed the water droplets in her dantian, drew out a stream of force, and poured it into the black jade token. Buzz! The barrier opened. Digression, Elder Huafeng. It's too difficult for me. Chapter 11:10. This time, the water droplet didn't react at all. Chu Luyue heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. Elder Wensi, on the other hand, looked at her with a surprised expression. It seems that your bloodline talent is very outstanding. Generally speaking, the stronger the bloodline talent, the greater the potential of a genius. Correspondingly, when the barrier sensed this, it would also open entrances of different sizes. Among the few people just now, Zhuosheng was the youngest, and Luo Shirshir was the oldest. But compared to the youth in front of her, they were still far behind. Chu Liuyue's eyelids twitched. She didn't expect that there would be such a trick in this barrier. But she didn't show it on her face. She only smiled and said, "Thank you for your praise, Elder. This is not a compliment." Elder Wensi shook his head. Such talent almost. Thinking of something, he suddenly stopped and shook his head with a smile. His eyes were filled with envy and regret. What a pity. You are a celestial physician who cultivates. If you are a martial artist, this old man will definitely think of a way to take you in as a disciple. Chu Liuyue's eyes flashed slightly, but she didn't say anything. Let's go. Let's go in too. Lest they wait anxiously inside. Elder Wensi laughed and followed Chu Luyue into the barrier. After a short flash of white light, Chu Luyue stood still and looked around. Although she was already mentally prepared, when she saw everything in front of her, Chu Luyue was still stunned on the spot. The blue sky was clear, and there were no clouds for thousands of miles. On the undulating mountain peaks, green clouds accumulated, and the branches and leaves were lush. A tall and magnificent iron-black bell tower stood in the middle, and was the most conspicuous. At a glance, it seemed as if it was about to connect the heavens and the earth. Under the iron-black bell tower, there was a huge and wide white square. Black and white complemented each other. Under the illumination of the sun, it reflected a trace of holy light. Other than that, with the bell tower and the square as the center, on the surrounding mountains, one could vaguely see many exquisitely built buildings. Most of them were independent of each other. The range was so wide that one couldn't see the edge at a glance. The rich and pure origin power of heaven and earth made one feel relaxed and happy. Chu Luyue took a deep breath, and couldn't help but be secretly shocked. Although the density of the force here was slightly lower than that of the Yuntian Tower, it was superior in terms of purity. To be able to cultivate here, one's cultivation speed would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. This is Lingxiao College, Luo Shirshir muttered in a low voice. Her beautiful eyes were filled with yearning and shock. Although the other two were trying their best to restrain themselves, it was obvious that they couldn't hide their excitement. Seeing is believing. Lingxiao College was indeed worthy of its reputation. Yo, Wensi, why did he bring so many children back this time? A voice suddenly came from afar. The few of them looked up and saw a gray-robed old man suddenly flying towards them. Before they could see how he moved, he was already in front of them. A moment ago they were still a few mountains away, but in the blink of an eye, they were here. Teleport. This was something that only deities who had completely stepped into the deity realm could accomplish. Luo Shirshir and the others became even more respectful. Chu Liuyue's heart also trembled slightly. Haha, that's Elder when she laughed out loud, full of pride. Xiaoji, these 4 children are all very outstanding. You can't be envious. When Elder Xiaoji heard this, he carefully sized up the few of them with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Elder Wensi's standards were very high. To be able to make him say such words proved that these people were really not bad. His gaze swept across Luo Shirshir and the others one by one. Early stage level 9. Early stage level 9. Level 9 mystic. As he looked, he muttered softly, revealing a satisfied expression. Not bad, not bad. They're all good seedlings. He was still praising them, but he didn't know that the people opposite him were also shocked by this. This Elder Qiaoji could actually see through their true cultivation realm at a glance. They had clearly concealed their auras. Ha ha ha. Don't worry, in the academy, The origin devices that conceal one's aura will lose their effect. All the students' true cultivation realms will be revealed. Moreover, Xiaoji's eyesight is a little sharp, so it's normal for him to be able to see through your standards. Elder Wensi seemed to have seen through their uneasiness and explained with a smile. Hearing this, Luo Shishir and the others were relieved. At the same time, they felt even more reverence for the academy. People in the entire Divine Ruins world would not casually reveal their strength when they went out. Therefore, many origin devices were specially used to conceal one's aura. However, they did not expect that these items would be useless in the academy. On one hand, this proved the strength of the academy. On the other hand, this also showed that everyone in the academy was very law-abiding and did not dare to cause trouble casually. Elder Qiaoji's gaze finally landed on Chu Luyue. The smile on his face froze slightly, and his gaze deepened. The origin device that concealed this youth's aura was actually not suppressed and broken. What's your strength? Elder Qiaoji asked. The moment he spoke, the others looked over. Only then did Elder Wensi realize that something was wrong with Chu Luyue. Hey, Chu Yu, I couldn't tell that you actually had such a powerful origin device on you. Elder Qiaoji's eyebrows suddenly trembled. What did you say his name was? Elder Wensi comforted him. Chu Yu, you as in Wu Yu. Can't you see that this is a boy? What are you nervous about? Elder Qiaoji rolled his eyes at him. You said it as if you weren't nervous. Of course, he knew that the person in front of him was a youth. He was just casually asking. Chu Luyue was stunned for a moment. Then his lips curved into a smile, and his eyes curved. Student Chu Yu, an 8th grade celestial physician. Qiaoji's pupils suddenly constricted. Don't laugh. Digression 6 p.m. Chapter 11:11. Chu Luyue's eyes flashed, and the smile on her face disappeared. She blinked her eyes with a pure and innocent expression, as if she did not understand what had happened. This gaze made Elder Qiaoji feel a little guilty. Ahem. No, nothing. I just feel that your smile seems a little familiar. I'm not used to it for a moment. Elder Wensi was about to say that he was making a fuss over nothing, but from the corner of his eye, he saw Chu Luyue retracting the corners of her eyes. That pair of clear black and white eyes were clear and clean. Upon closer inspection, it was like a deep spring, clear but mysterious. At a glance, she really did look somewhat similar to that scourge. No wonder Qiaoji had such a big reaction. Elder Wensi, did I do something wrong? Chu Luyue turned her gaze slightly and looked at Elder Wensi, as if she was asking for help. Being stared at by her eyes, Elder Wensi's heart inexplicably trembled. It's nothing. Didn't he just say that he felt that you and a person, yes? Very similar to a person. Don't take it to heart. Elder Wensi hurriedly explained. He felt that he and Elder Qiaoji were making a mountain out of a molehill. This child looked fresh and clean. Most importantly, he was only a 16-year-old boy. How could he be related to that person? It wasn't good for the child to be frightened on his first day at the academy. Thinking of this, Elder Wensi said again, That's right. Qiaoji, don't underestimate this child. He's only 16 years old now. These words indeed shocked Elder Qiaoji, and he snapped out of his daze. Really? A 16-year-old 8th grade celestial physician was very rare in the academy. How can this be fake? Those old things took advantage of us for nothing. It was not easy to meet such a top-notch person, and he was actually a celestial physician. Fortunately, there was still Luo Shishir and the others, so it was not a waste. He finally felt some psychological comfort. Qiaoji was also a martial artist. Hearing this, he nodded seriously and curled his lips. Forget it. They don't have many students to begin with. If you send this child over, they'll owe you a big favor. Hehe, that's true. Elder Wensi was in a good mood again. He looked back at them and said, Today is your first day at the academy. Although we've already tested your talent and strength, you're free to move about for the first few days. Feel free to take a look around the academy and learn from the teachers. At the beginning of every month, all the teachers will gather together to recruit students. At that time, you can decide which teacher you want to join. Don't worry, Because the academy recruits students at random, there are often new students, so everyone is very polite to the newcomers. As long as you humbly ask for guidance and are courteous, you basically won't cause any trouble in the academy. Of course, during this process, you will inevitably encounter some people who want to spar with you. If you are willing to agree, then agree. If you are unwilling, you can also refuse. There is no need to force yourself, Elder Wincy said patiently. Then his expression turned serious. In the academy, the most important thing is to raise your own cultivation. As long as you are strong enough, everything else is easy. As for your identity, it's not important. Do you understand? Luo Shishir and the others nodded seriously. Chu Luyue had a better impression of Lingxiao College in his heart. Although this place also respected the strong, it was obvious that it tried to maintain equality between the students. Just this point alone was already very rare. The students of Lingxiao College came from all over the world. Among them, there were children of aristocratic families and ordinary people of ordinary birth. In the outside world, their identities were different. But here, they only had the identity of a student of Lingxiao College. This was actually more beneficial for cultivation. The academy is relatively large. You're new here, so it's easy to get lost. However, just remember one thing. If you lose your way, go to the Donghuang Bell Tower in the middle, and you'll be able to return safely. Of course, just go to the Qingming Square below the Donghuang Bell Tower. You don't have to go forward, and you don't have to go in. Usually, only the dean and the elders can enter there with a card. If others enter without permission, they will be in danger if they're not careful. If something happens, no one will be able to save you in time, understand? When he said the last sentence, Elder Wincy's words carried a hint of warning. The heavy pressure caused Luo Shishir and the others to unconsciously feel a chill on their backs. They hurriedly said, "Students understand." Chu Luyue glanced at the Donghuang Bell Tower. Even under the bright sunlight, the iron-black color still revealed a sense of coldness. As for the Qingming Square below, if she didn't feel wrongly, there seemed to be a powerful Xian formation on it. She retracted her gaze and suppressed her thoughts. Apart from that, the academy is divided into 4 parts: north, south, east, and west. The east is the celestial physician, the south is the Xian master, and the west is the martial artist. As Elder Wincy spoke, he raised his finger and showed it to them. Although the division of the regions is clear, because there are many dual or even triple cultivators in the academy, there are more interactions between each other. You can go to whichever region you're best at. If you want to go to other places to take a look, it's fine. As expected of the top academy in the Divine Ruins world. If it was anywhere else, dual cultivation geniuses were already very rare. But here, even triple cultivation was not rare. Elder Wincy, where is the north? Zhuoxing asked straightforwardly. Ha ha ha. That's a good place. Elder Wincy laughed loudly. That's the territory of the weapon refiners. Weapon refiners? Luo Shishir and the others all revealed shocked expressions. That's right. Although the outside world has always said that the skills of the weapon refiners have been lost on the continent, there are still a few old fellows in our academy. It's just that because we have too few disciples, we've always kept a low profile. It was impossible not to keep a low profile. With just that few people, there was already an endless stream of people begging for help. If this was any more ostentatious, the academy's threshold would probably be broken by people. There was no other way. There were not many people who knew about the top refining techniques that were still circulating in the world. Most of the divine weapons that were circulating on the market were forged by the weapon refiners thousands of years ago, or left behind by the experts of the past. Now, the weapon refiners who truly had the strength to forge powerful divine weapons were simply too precious. It was also because of this that even though they had few people, they still occupied a quarter of the entire academy's territory. You don't have to go there if you have nothing to do. The weapon refiners are busy forging divine weapons all day long. From time to time, there will be Tianlei striking down. It won't be good if you're accidentally implicated, Elder Wincy said resentfully as he thought of something. Chapter 11-12. The few of them agreed obediently. All right, I've roughly told you about the situation in the academy. You'll have to go and take a look yourself to truly understand the rest. This old man won't waste any more time here. Elder Wensi clapped his hands. Xiao Yi, help me send these children over first. I have something to do. Elder Xiao Yi, who was suddenly pulled over to be a laborer, was confused. What's the matter? Why are you in such a hurry? Elder Wensi coughed. I'll go and urge them to let the next person on duty go to Fangzhou earlier. Didn't you just come back? Huafeng should be watching over there right now. Why are you in such a hurry? Elder Qiaoyi found it even more strange. Generally speaking, every elder would be in charge of guarding outside for a day. Every time it was a certain time, the elder in charge of taking over would go a little earlier. However, it was rare for the previous one to call for the next one to go up as soon as he returned. Elder Wensi wanted to say something but hesitated. He couldn't say that they felt that the scourge had returned. If he said that, no one would go. It was better to hide it as long as possible. It's nothing. You know Huafeng's old habit. He likes to drink when he has nothing to do. I'm afraid that he'll secretly drink again when he's alone. It's fine if he gets drunk, but it won't be good if he delays other things. Only then did Elder Qiao nod. That's true. I've told him about this habit so many times, but he hasn't changed. Sigh, isn't it all because he was forced to quit drinking in the past? Now that he has the opportunity, he can finally drink to his heart's content. Elder Wensi's voice stopped abruptly. Xiao Yi's expression also changed slightly. Speaking of Huafeng quitting drinking, it was all thanks to a certain someone. Even the dean couldn't get him to quit, but a certain someone did it. However, the method was a little cruel, the process was a little bumpy, and Huafeng was a little miserable. As a result, he became even worse now that he was liberated. The two of them looked at each other. Xiao Yi seemed to have thought of something and couldn't bear it. Forget it, let him drink. I'll help you take care of these children. Go find someone to help him. Elder Wensi turned around and quickly disappeared from everyone's sight. His strength was obviously not weaker than Elder Qiao Yi. Come, let's go to the warriors first. Elder Qiao Yi waved his hand. Elder Qiao Yi took the lead while Luo Shishir and the others followed closely behind. Chu Luo quietly followed at the end of the team. As she listened to Elder Qiao Yi talk about the academy with the others from time to time, she kept looking around her. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but she felt as if she had been here before. Coupled with the scene that had appeared in her mind earlier, she was even more certain of her guess. Unfortunately, most of her memories were incomplete. Apart from that one frame, she couldn't remember anything else. Therefore, he could only suppress his thoughts for the time being. After flying in for a while, it became much livelier. Students could be seen cultivating on almost every mountaintop. From time to time, they could also see some teachers in class. In short, it was a scene of prosperity and liveliness. Chu Luo felt inexplicably happy. If he could cultivate here, it would indeed be a very good thing. Then why did Rong Xiu keep hiding it from me? Thinking of this, Chu Luo raised her eyebrows slightly. The warrior's territory is up ahead. Elder Qiao Yi suddenly shouted. As if they had sensed the movement in the sky, many people below raised their heads and looked over. Look, Elder Qiao Yi is here. Could it be that the ones following behind him are today's new students? 1, 2, 3, 4. There are actually 4 of them. I think there's a junior sister. Some people could not hide their excitement. One had to know that the proportion of female cultivators was not high on their side. Therefore, every time a junior sister entered the academy, they were very happy. Smack! A tall figure walked out from the crowd. All of you put away your thoughts and watch your eyes. When this was said, many people shrunk their heads. It was because the person who spoke was one of the best in the academy, Luo Yanlin. Brother Lin, do you know them? The young man who was beaten up asked boldly with a grimace. Luo Yanlin snorted, but did not pay much attention to him. He flew straight up. He went straight for those people. After a while, he stood in front of Elder Qiao Yi and bowed respectfully. Greetings, Elder Qiao Yi. Luo Yanlin, why are you here today? When Elder Qiao saw him, he also laughed out loud. I just finished studying a Xian formation and came to spar with them. As Luo Yanlin spoke, his gaze landed on Luo Shirshir and the others. His handsome face immediately became gentler. Also, I'm here to pick up my younger siblings. Oh, when Elder Qiaoyi heard that, he turned around to take a look. It was only then that he realized something. Fourth brother. Luo Shirshir and the others could not hide their excitement and shouted in unison. Zhuosheng was cousins with them. They grew up together and had a good relationship. Therefore, she also called him fourth brother. Luo Yinlin's smile deepened. Not bad. You guys came faster than I expected. It seems that Shirshir has broken through in advance. How are father and mother? Luo Shirshir blushed slightly. They're doing well. They just miss fourth brother. The people who were watching from below sighed. So she was really Luo Yinlin's younger sister. And she was his biological sister. Then there was no hope for them. There were not many people in the academy who were Luo Yinlin's match. If they wanted his sister, they must be tired of living. Sigh. Why are there 3 junior brothers here? Someone sighed. When Elder Qiaoyi heard this, he glanced down and snorted. You guys are dreaming. Among these 4 little fellows, only Luo Shirshir and Zhuosheng are Xian masters. Everyone looked at Luo Yanming and Chu Luiyue in surprise. The remaining 2 aren't martial artists? Luo Yanlin, bring the 2 of them down and familiarize yourself with them. I still have to send them off. Elder Qiaoyi instructed. Luo Yanlin nodded and waved at the 2 of them. Shirshir, Sheng, come with me. The 2 of them obediently walked to his side. After not seeing each other for a long time, they naturally missed each other. Let's go to the Xian masters next. Elder Qiaoyi said. Luo Yanlin smiled at Luo Yanming. You go first. I'll come later. On my account, those people won't bully you. Luo Yanming nodded with a smile. At this moment, Luo Shirshir suddenly spoke. Chuyu, you can do it too. Luo Yanlin glanced at his sister and followed her line of sight. It was a handsome and tall youth. His eyes were clear, and his temperament was clean. He narrowed his eyes. Chuyu? Unexpectedly, Zhuosheng also raised her fist. Chuyu, I heard that those celestial physicians are very proud. Don't be a coward. Chu Luiyue blinked, chuckled and nodded. Okay. Elder Qiaoyi suddenly turned to look at her. Chu Luiyue almost instinctively stopped her back and retracted her smile by 30%. Elder Qiaoyi nodded in satisfaction. She's obedient. He was relieved. Chapter 11:13. Chu Luiyue quickly left with Elder Qiaoyi and Luo Yanming. Who's he? Luo Yanlin looked at the 2 people beside him and asked in a seemingly casual manner after the 3 figures gradually disappeared into the distance. You guys seem to be close? Actually, we're not very close. We just met in Fangzhou City. Zhuosheng chuckled and said casually. That kid is very talented. He's only 16 years old, but he's already an 8th grade celestial physician. Oh, Luo Yanlin raised his eyebrows slightly. A hint of surprise flashed across his eyes, but it quickly returned to normal. Zhuosheng and the others were new here, so they might be a little shocked and curious when they encountered such a situation. However, he had been in the academy for a few years and was used to seeing top geniuses from all over the world. Although Chuyu was not bad, it was not to the extent that he was stunned. He's not bad. If he can develop well, his future will be bright. Luo Yanlin gave a fair evaluation. I think he can do it. Luo Shirshir suddenly said. Luo Yanlin's eyes flickered. He saw Luo Shirshir looking at the figure in the distance with a serious expression. I've seen many talented celestial physicians, but most of them are very arrogant. However, Chuyu, he was humble and polite, and knew when to advance and retreat. If they had not seen it with their own eyes during the test, they would not have believed that he was only 16 years old. Zhuosheng was 23 years old, but in front of him, he was like a child. Such a calm temperament, whether it was innate or nurtured, was very shocking. Luo Yanlin rubbed his chin. Whether he can do it or not, we'll know at the beginning of the month. Those arrogant celestial physicians were not that easy to fool. He waved at the 2 of them. All right, let's not bother about them for now. I'll bring you guys to familiarize yourself with the environment first. I'll check on Yinming later. Sure. You've already reached the early stage of the 9th level. Do you want to compete with me again? Luo Sure finally looked away, her eyes shining. Okay. Ever since her 4th brother came to Lingxiao College, they had not sparred. She was a little tempted. Zhuo Sheng hurriedly shouted. 4th brother? What about me? Luo Yinlin smiled. You too. Hearing this voice, the many students who were waiting below to watch started to cheer. With Luo Yinlin around, the two of them blended in easily. Chu Luyue couldn't help but turn around to take a look, when he heard the faint cheers of the students behind him. Elder Qiao seemed to have sensed something and asked, What? Do you want to stay and watch? Chu Luyue shook his head. His thin lips pursed slightly, and the corners of his mouth raised in a very faint arc. This student was just surprised. I didn't expect the academy to be like this. Hehe, then what were you thinking? Elder Qiaoyi chuckled. Blindly fighting is actually meaningless. Blindly trying to be brave is also useless. Those who are able to enter Lingxiao College are all the most outstanding geniuses in the Divine Ruins world. There's no way they wouldn't understand this principle. The most important thing is to learn from each other and improve our own cultivation. Apart from the academy, they were well aware that there were even more experts outside. Only by making himself stronger would he not waste a single minute and a single second here. Chu Luyue sighed softly. You're right. The principal and elders of the academy must have contributed greatly to creating such an environment of open competition and mutual tolerance. When she first came here, she actually had a lot of other thoughts. But now, she suddenly had some expectations and yearnings for Lingxiao College. Those over there are all Xian master students. Elder Qiaoyi suddenly stopped and pointed below. Chu Luyue followed his line of sight and looked over. On the flat and wide ground halfway up the mountain, there were more than 20 students standing there. There were both males and females, but they were all quite young. All of them seemed to be full of youthful energy. Standing at the front of them was a woman in her 30s. She had a graceful figure and a gentle face. However, the faint pressure coming from her made one not dare to underestimate her. Even taking a few more glances at her seemed to be blasphemy. There was a huge and complicated Xian formation beside her. From the looks of it, she seemed to be in class. When she heard the commotion, she raised her head slightly and looked over. Elder Qiaoyi laughed. Qingyang, I've brought you a good seedling today. Miao Qingyang pursed her lips and smiled. It's clearly Wenxi's credit. Why are you here? Judging from her tone, she seemed to be of the same seniority as these elders. Elder Qiaoyi snorted. I knew I couldn't hide it from you. You already knew when they passed through the barrier, right? Miao Qingyang smiled and did not deny it. She was indeed in charge of guarding part of Lingxiao College's barrier. Therefore, she was aware of some of the things that happened. She looked at Luo Yinming gently. You're Yinlin's younger brother, right? I've heard him mention you before. You're indeed not bad. Luo Yinming hurriedly said. Greetings, elder. I'm Luo Yinming. You can just call me Qingyang. Calling me elder makes me sound old for no reason. Miao Qingyang sighed coquettishly. Luo Yinming did not dare to do so. Miao Qingyang did not tease him. Instead, it was the other students who started shouting. Qingyang doesn't like people calling her elder. Newcomer, please remember it in the future. He called her that just now, but Qingyang didn't get angry. Is it because of Yinlin? That goes without saying. Haha. Yinlin is Qingyang's favorite disciple. Now that there's another one, why would she be angry? Luo Yinming was speechless when she saw how the crowd was cheering. She did not expect there to be such an elder in the world. Qingyang glanced at the crowd with a half-smile. Don't scare him. Have you figured out the Xian formation yet? Are you here to join in the fun? The crowd quickly retracted their gazes and continued studying the Xian formation. Miao Qingyang's beautiful eyes turned to Chu Luyue. This child is not bad. She raised her eyebrows slightly and revealed a meaningful smile. She could not see through the young man's strength. It was obvious that the yuan instrument he had with him was very powerful. The Luo family was one of the top families in the world of God. But Luo Yinming did not have such an item. This young man, sigh. Qingyang, this is not for you. This young man is a celestial physician. Elder Qiaoyi hurriedly explained. Miao Qingyang looked regretful. Ah, that's a pity. I feel like I have an affinity with this child. That was the truth. The young man's black and white eyes were clear, and clear like spring water. It was pleasing to look at. Vaguely, there was a sense of familiarity between his eyebrows. Elder Qiaoyi's mouth twitched. All right. Since I've brought him here, I won't stay any longer. After that, he left with Chu Luyue. Not long after, Chu Luyue smelled a strong medicinal fragrance coming from the mountain. Her eyes lit up. Someone was forming a pill. Chapter 11:14. Soon, she realized that it was not just one person who was refining the pill, but two. On a short mountain peak, two youths were facing each other. There was a cauldron in front of each of them. Flames were rising from the cauldrons, and one could vaguely see a pill the size of a longan fruit. The rich medicinal fragrance came from this cauldron. There was a stone platform beside each of them. There were several black jade tokens on one stone platform, while there was only one on the other stone platform. This seemed to be a competition. There were a few people standing around the two youths, as if they were watching the competition. As for the black jade token on the stone platform, it should belong to them. Chu Luyue took a closer look. The two youths looked to be around 23 or 24 years old. The one on the left was tall and skinny. He wore a blue robe and had a decent appearance. His eyes were fixed on the pill that was about to be completed in the cauldron. His originally fair face was slightly flushed, and fine sweat appeared on his forehead. It was obvious that he was at the end of his rope. On the other hand, the person opposite him wore a black brocade robe and had deep facial features. Compared to his opponent, his expression was much more relaxed. The outcome of this battle was clear at a glance. Looks like Tuoba Xian is going to win again. Elder Qiaoyi seemed to be used to this scene. He stroked his beard and said, if he wins this round, he will have won 5 rounds in a row. Chu Luyue followed his gaze and realized that he was staring at the youth with deep facial features. Most of the black jade tokens were indeed placed on the stone platform beside him. Clearly, everyone believed that he would win. On the other hand, the blue-robed youth only had one black jade token on the stone platform. That should be his. Elder Qiaoyi sensed her gaze and saw the curiosity in her eyes. He chuckled and explained, that's right. They are betting on pills. Betting on pills? Chu Luyue was stunned for a moment. That's right. There are many celestial physician students in the academy. They are not convinced of each other's strength, so they often bet on pills. The two participants will choose the time and place to compete. Whoever could refine a higher-grade pill with better medicinal effects would be considered the winner. However, what was different from a normal competition was that before the competition, they had to place their bets. Anything was fine with this bet. As for the spectators, they also have to place bets before the competition starts. Chu Luyue narrowed his eyes. Other than that, if I win the bet, there should be other rewards, right? A simple bet wasn't enough to make these geniuses scramble like ducks. It was fine if it happened once in a while, but if it happened often, it was really unnecessary. If he had the time, he might as well use it to research pill recipes. Since so many people were so enthusiastic about it, there must be some other reason. Elder Qiaoyi looked at her with admiration. You're smart. These bets were actually not the main point. The main point was that winning or losing this pill bet would affect their points in the academy. Points. In the academy, most things require different amounts of points to exchange for. In other words, points were the hard currency of the academy, which was also money. They can be used to exchange for herbs, books, or anything else you want. When it comes to pill bets, other than the usual bets, they would often bet their points too. With this method, they can accumulate points at an extremely fast speed. Of course, if they lose, they will lose everything. Chu Luyue nodded in understanding and looked at the black jade tokens placed on the 2 stone platforms. The spectators will also bet their points? That's right. There will be more and less, and the winning rate will be different. They have already communicated with each other beforehand. As long as it was a normal pill bet and nothing happened, the elders of the academy would support it. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't interfere. Elder Qiaoyi looked at her and chuckled. Why? Do you want to bet too? You just entered the academy today, so you should have 100 points. Chu Luiyue curled her fingers. I'm a newcomer, is that all right? What's wrong with that? Elder Qiaoyi waved his sleeves and flew down. Chu Luiyue followed closely behind him. Sensing the presence of someone behind them, the few people who had been watching the battle attentively turned around to look. Elder Qiaoyi. Upon seeing the other party's face, they hurriedly bowed. Elder Qiaoyi waved his hands and smiled. There's no need to stand on ceremony. I brought you a new seedling, who just entered the academy. The few of them turned to look at Chu Luiyue behind him. Chu Luiyue clasped her fist and bowed. Paying respects to senior brothers. The few of them returned the greeting politely, but they still looked at Chu Luiyue doubtfully. May I know what rank this junior is at now? Chu Luiyue smiled. 8th rank. A hint of understanding flashed across their eyes, and there was a hint of contempt in their eyes. Elder Qiaoyi knew these people very well, and he couldn't help but chuckle. A 16-year-old 8th rank celestial physician. He should be quite popular here, right? The few students were taken aback, and they looked at Chu Luiyue in a completely different manner. Chu you go. Whoever you think will win, just put your own black jade token up there. Elder Qiaoyi patted Chu Luiyue's shoulders energetically. After all, he was the one who brought the other party in, so he had to back him up. A god-tier cultivator slapped Chu Luiyue's shoulder, causing half of her shoulder to go numb. However, it was fortunate that she had cultivated under the guidance of Dugu Ma Bao for a period of time, so her resistance to blows had increased significantly. At this moment, she was barely able to stabilize herself. Originally, they shouldn't have participated in the pill gambling at this point. However, since Elder Qiaoyi had spoken, they couldn't refute him. Forget it, I'll just treat it as a greeting gift for the new junior. Chu Luiyue glanced at them and walked towards one of them. Then, he placed the black jade token on the platform. The black jade token on the platform turned from 1 to 2. Sigh. Elder Qiaoyi raised his hand, wanting to stop him, but it was too late. You child. Didn't Elder Qiaoyi already say that Tuoba Xian would definitely win? Just by looking at the number of black jade tokens on both sides of the platform, it was obvious who had a higher chance of winning. Elder Qiaoyi was exasperated at Tuoba Xian's failure to live up to his expectations. When the few people beside him saw this, they looked at each other, and mockery flashed across their eyes. A 16-year-old 8th rank celestial physician. It sounded quite impressive, but it didn't seem like he had any real skills. They were already at the last step of pill formation. How could he make the wrong choice? Chu Luiyue didn't seem to notice this. After putting down the black jade token, he walked back with a calm expression. Elder Qiaoyi lowered his voice. Chu Yu, what are you doing? You only have 100 points. After this round, all of them will be deducted. Chu Luiyue blinked. Isn't pill gambling supposed to be a gamble? Digression you. Take a gamble and turn a bicycle into a motorcycle. Chapter 11:15. Elder Qiaoyi shook his head inwardly. To think that he thought that this child was obedient and steady. Who knew that he would be so daring? Even if he wanted to bet, he had to win. How could he bet on losing? Great, he had just arrived at the academy and was about to lose everything. Don't do this again in the future. You don't know how hard it is to earn points. Elder Qiaoyi said earnestly. Chu Luiyue nodded seriously. However, it was another matter whether they took his advice or not. At this moment, a buzzing sound could be heard. The surrounding people looked up and saw that the sound came from Tuoba Xian's cauldron. It's about to succeed. Someone shouted in a low voice. The medicinal fragrance became stronger. Flames rose, and on the surface of the pill, lines and lines appeared one after another. Everyone could not help but hold their breaths. However, at this moment a slight fluctuation suddenly came from the cauldron. Tuoba Xian's expression changed slightly. Then, without giving him any time to react, the pill suddenly exploded. Boom! There was a loud explosion. Tuoba Xian was the first to bear the brunt of the impact. He was immediately flung out by the terrifying force and fell heavily to the ground. However, he could not care about himself. He hurriedly got up and looked at his cauldron. The flames inside had been completely extinguished. The pill was also destroyed, leaving only a handful of ashes. A faint burnt smell filled the air. Tuoba Xian's face turned pale. How could? He had only made a small mistake just now. He thought that he had repaired it. Who knew that it was still? The sudden explosion also shocked the surrounding people. Almost at the same time, Zhong Sun had also reached the final stage. His face was red and his lips were pale. Sweat kept dripping from his forehead. It was obvious that he could not hold on any longer. However, his feet were still rooted to the ground. He used all his strength to inject his last bit of energy into the pill. Buzz! A fluctuation hit the cauldron. A rich medicinal fragrance exploded. Several vein patterns appeared on the medicinal pill one after another. Then the pill suddenly rushed out. Zhong Sun hurriedly took out a jade box and put it inside. Crack! The jade box closed. That medicinal pill had been locked inside obediently. He stumbled and almost fell to the ground. After he steadied himself, he was finally able to catch his breath. Looking at the crowd, his tired face was filled with undisguised joy. I won. Everyone fell silent. No one had expected that Tuoba Yu, who'd originally occupied the upper hand all along the way, and had victory within his grasp, would actually fail at the final moment and lose to Zhong Sun. Even Elder Qiao Yi was stunned for a moment. Congratulations. The person who spoke was Chu Luyue. Zhong Sun looked at her and smiled. Thank you for supporting me earlier. Chu Luyue blinked. Senior brother, I just wanted to take a risk. I should be the one thanking you. You won't blame me for sharing your points, right? Haha, how could this be? Zhong Sun laughed. He had won quite a bit in this comeback, so it was not a big deal to share some with this junior brother. Most importantly, this person was the only one who stood out to support him when he was at his weakest. He had to admit that he did not have much confidence in himself at that time. Only this junior brother of his helped him to calm his mind. That was more important than anything else. Zhong Sun walked to another stone platform. Tuoba Xian had already stood up with a complicated expression. Everyone, I won't stand on ceremony with you for the previous bet and points. Zhong Sun said with a smile. Tuoba Xian took a deep breath. If you're willing to bet, you must be willing to admit defeat. Take it. I'll get it back from you next time. Zhong Sun touched each of the black jade tokens with his own. Rays of light flashed. Chu Luyue realized that the black jade tokens also had their own secrets. After Zhong Sun searched through all the black jade tokens, he walked back to her side and said with a smile, I'm sorry. Little junior brother, give it to me. Chu Luyue handed her token over. With a flash of light, a few lines of small words appeared on her black jade token. Chu Luyue quickly scanned it and realized that there were a few more things inside. There were herbs, prescriptions, and so on. There was a number at the bottom. 1,000. That should be her share of the points. Senior brother, this. My name is Zhong Sun. Zhong Sun smiled and returned the items to Chu Luyue. You deserve all of this. Don't stand on ceremony. Chu Luyue hesitated for a moment, but finally took it and smiled. Thank you, senior brother Zhong Sun. This black jade token indeed had the same effect as the universe ring. As if seeing through her thoughts, Zhong Sun explained, a lot of things can be stored in the black jade token. As the points increase, the space will become larger. Moreover, as long as it enters your black jade token, it will be marked with your aura. Therefore, you don't have to worry about it being stolen or robbed. Chu Luyue thought that this thing was indeed convenient. Just this point alone could dispel many people's crooked thoughts. The bets won from normal pill gambling, or the items that you take the initiative to give away, will also be recorded. It won't cause trouble. This made Chu Luyue regard the black jade token in her hand even more highly. I didn't know that this thing was so formidable. Of course, the black jade token of every student in the academy is specially refined by the elder of the armament master. Elder Qiao Yi added. As he spoke, he walked over and looked at Chu Luyue with a surprised gaze. You're quite lucky. Even under such circumstances, you actually won the bet. Chu Liyue smiled faintly. My luck has always been good, but this time, it's all thanks to you and senior brother Zhong Sun. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had this chance. Elder Qiao Yi was pleased to hear that. Alright, now that you're here, you should learn from them during this period of time. At the beginning of the month, you can take the examination and acknowledge them as your teacher. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. Chu Liyue replied. The other students also hurriedly sent him off. Elder Qiao Yi's figure quickly disappeared from everyone's sight. The surroundings quickly quietened down. What's your name? Tuoba Xian's voice came from behind. Chu Liyue turned around and smiled faintly. Chu Yu. Chu Yu? Tuoba Xian swallowed a mouthful of blood in his throat and looked at her suspiciously. Why did you bet on him winning just now? Chu Liyue's expression didn't change. It's more interesting to win with a small bet. If he were to follow the trend, he would only be taking a mouthful of the other party's soup. Moreover, Zhong Sun was definitely going to win this round. Why did she have to make things difficult for herself? Tuoba Xian's expression became more restrained as he thought to himself that he was thinking too much. She was just an 8th grade celestial physician. She shouldn't be able to see anything. Perhaps it was really just a coincidence. Junior brother Chu Yu, I'll bring you around. It'll be the beginning of the month in a few days. There's not much time left for you to prepare. Zhong Sun said. Chu Liyue nodded. Thank you, senior brother Zhong Sun. That you're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.